Hello Magic players, welcome you to our third review special. Good to have you guys here again. This time it's Charles' deck, so I will give the word over to Charles. Charles.
Oh,
Hey,
okay,
man.
good to have everybody here. Welcome for part 2 of our review special, episodes 51 to 75. In part 1, we reviewed Micha's list with Magnus A. Laval and Jeff Anon, and I thought it was a great review session. Hopefully this will be equally as entertaining and fun to go through. Thank you both for being with us again. This is super. We have a lot of decks to go through, so without further ado, we'll go to episode 51. I'll just quickly say that I'm going to do a 30-second kind of intro of what the idea was for why I play the decks and why they look like they are, and then I'll let you guys tear right into it. So let's start with episode 51's deck.
And here we are.
Okay, on an earlier episode, I tried my favorite Paul Da Silva Good Stuff list that he played in LobsterCon 19 that had Armageddons and that had Urnums and Sarahs and Lions and Dibs. And I think he went less for white because of Gloom, and he wanted to play more of a greenish version with Pixies. So I wanted to get his updated version on an episode. It's a very solid list. I don't know if it's better or worse than his original list, but it's really fun, and Micha wanted to play kind of a more spiky episode, so I went for Paul's updated Good Stuff, and I do really love it, and love to hear what you guys have to say.
I think it's a cool deck. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I would say it's a cool deck. Paul's a great guy, and his decks are really cool. He's got a lot of results, and this is like a different version of that. Maybe for the Swedish metagame or just trying something different. I feel like I miss at least having one Armageddon because I'm playing Demonic Tutor, so it'd be nice to sometimes just I don't know if for some reason Demonic Tutor to Geddon is the play instead of Demonic Tutor for some other really good card that might be blue or something else. It's nice to have one. And I guess you really don't want to see sitting in a bottle, right? That's, I guess, a classic theme of this kind of deck.
I think when I first started looking at it, it's okay, I'm looking at the Armageddon list, and then no, there's no Geddons, or it's just Louter deck as well. No, it's not that either. They're 18 creatures. Then you see the 2-2 split of swords, and then you realize, okay, it's a Paul Da Silva list, because that's a classic split.
I should say that's the only change I made to his list. He had 4 slots, and he went with 4 Disenchants made and 4 swords in the sideboard. And I wasn't really sure if that was right or wrong. I decided to split it, but he thinks 4 Disenchants is right. So I should say that. I'm actually quite curious what you both think of if you had 4 slots, how would you split you have 4 in the sideboard and 4 in the main, how would you split that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the meta, I would say, very much. They're clearly very solid cards. I mean, in a sense, the Psionic Blasts can act as swords for most cards because they take the late game threats like the Serenials and stuff, and the early game threats you should be able to handle because you have your Venus as well. So if you're facing a deck with Lions or Pixies or something, you have your own Lions and Pixies to counter that. So in a sense, the swords aren't as important because you have bunch of early answers to an early lion or something, and then if you need to handle the later dangerous threats, then you have the side blasts as well. So I mean, it's depends on what you're expecting to face, because this I would agree that it's a more spiky than spicy deck for the main deck at least. So I think you're trying to maximize here how you get to the finals and win the finals.
To be fair, I would cut the swords for 4 Psyblasts. You have 18 creatures. With 4 Psyblasts and the Twister, you're pretty much ahead anyways. So cut the swords. The blasts remove every creature, which is in a way a problem, and they also deal 4 damage in the face, you know what I mean? And I'm not seeing that you get low on life with that deck.
But I still think if I would have four slots to do anything I want to those, I would say at least 2 of these should be Disenchants, and at least 1 of these should be an Armageddon, and then the last one maybe something else. I think the sideboard is
Sorry. Hard to tell. If I would cut the 2 swords, I'd put in 1 Armageddon and then put in a 3rd Disenchant. That's for me. I think off the top of my head right now. Like you said, Psyblast kills almost every creature that could be a problem if necessary. I think like if your opponent, the only creatures that I can think of that it won't kill is like another Urnum or something like that, or a Juzam. In which case it doesn't matter. You're just going to fly over with your 6 flyers, and then you still have a Chaos Orb that if you really need to get it.
Yeah. And the mana.
I mean, the only possible thing could be like if you're facing like Hypnotic Spectre lists that like land an early Spectre, but in that case, then you have your sideboard swords, right? Against that. True. Speaking of sideboard, it's really like Slate of Mind. Rare to see that one in the sideboard. I think it's a very fun card. Like, what is it that you're scared of that you bring in the Slate of Mind?
I think it's I'm not really sure. I mean, typically that's like a very mano play if he's worried about Blood Moon to bring that as an answer. So to splash.
But that would be a magical hack. Would be a much better magical hack. Would be a much better card if you're afraid of Blood Moon.
Can't that doesn't with Slate of Mind to Karma, or is it magical hack which can change basic land type on a card?
Magical hacks change basic lands, so Slate of Mind could change like a Circle of Protection or a Gloom or something. Okay, but so you're not.
Hack would be amazing with the Karma, right? Because you
or like you could do something fun with the Urnums or something. Magical hack, I could probably see an argument for here. Maybe not a good argument, but an argument. But the Slate of Minds, it's like I'm not really sure what the plan is. Like it's of course like super fun to do like Red Elemental Blast Slate of Mind or something, but that doesn't work the way you want it to because you can't target.
True.
It'd be fun to use that on a terror, right? I'll terror your Sarah. I'll change that to can't target white creatures. That would be
or I mean, like if you board in your protection from black creatures, the Warding Dervish in sideboard, it could be.
But isn't that super weird? Like you bring in the Whirling Dervish and hope you find that one of Slate of Mind to change.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, man. Yeah,
like that. I mean. Yeah.
I could spend an hour on that card, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we should go to the next list. This is not a spicy list for sure. It's a really fun, solid list, and everyone should give it a try if they can. Episode 52, unless somebody else has anything else.
Yes, episode number 52. I was in charge for the pictures, so for the viewers, if anything with the pictures went wrong, it's all on me here. But I think I did a great job. List 52 is up.
Okay, so, all right, so in one of the first, I think, 10 or 12 episodes of Brewers Tavern, I played like what I would call the classic Spectral Cloak Elite from Cairo list. It was a blue-red deck, and Elite from Cairo was a really fun card, and putting a Spectral Cloak on it and being able to absorb all the damage in the world and not really caring is fun. But one of the problems with this is when you try to put any enchant creature on a creature, a response of, I'll swords or I'll bolt it, and you just like lose 2 for 1, and that's just awful. And it's the same thing. I also played in the first 15 or 16 episodes a Power Monolith list, which is, again, a lot of fun to get Power Artifact on a Basalt Monolith and have unlimited mana and try to either Fireball your opponent or Brain Geyser them or Stream of Life for 1,000,000 and use Book of Wrath to draw through your whole deck. But again, one of the problems is you try to get the Power Artifact on a Basalt Monolith and response Disenchant Shatter is a 2 for 1, and this combo is it's definitely tough. So the idea of this deck is we're going to try to combine a few different archetypes, but we're going to try to use Eureka. And Eureka has a real benefit that during the Eureka, you can't respond and swords or bolt or disenchant. You can't do any of that. So I play Eureka, and I can play the LE and then the Spectral Cloak right on top, or the Basalt Monolith and then the Power Artifact right on top. And right after the Eureka, if I have the Power Artifact going, even if you disenchant it now, I can still take unlimited mana and Fireball and just win. So that's kind of the idea. So this deck does win in different ways. Since I have 3 Eurekas in the main, it's really hard to not want to do transformational to a full Eureka deck with big creatures, because I only bring in the 4th, and then you can play Crossroads and you can play Modis and Shivans and Trikes and Urnum. So it's really tempting to want to do that. And that will also, again, really throw off your opponent, because the main doesn't even have factories. So bolts and swords, these are not great cards. I guess I have 3 LEs, but I don't have creatures in the main that are not LEs. So my opponent's really encouraged to take out creature removal. So this is a kind of tricky deck. It's definitely like a unique build, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm super happy to have it in episode 52. And curious what you guys think.
There are a bunch of like initial thoughts, but one thing is that this deck probably has like the worst like price to win ratio of any Magic deck ever played. It's like so much alpha power and duels, and it's like mediocre deck. But I mean, it looks super fun. And the first time I lost to Eureka, let me play Basalt Monolith and Power Artifact while I had Shatter in hand, and then just lost. Okay, yeah, this is very cool. So I mean, this is I think this is a fantastic list, and if you have the cards, as you say, like if you own the cards, this is something that I think that everyone should try at some point, because it's just so like everything, the Timmy, as the 12-year-old or 14-year-old or how old you were when we started playing, wanted to do. Like you have all the Shivan Dragon, the hugest creature, you fireball them for infinity, and you become like immortal with Ali from Chiron. Like it's all these, kids' dreams cards in a sense, and you play all the power, and it's very cool. Like card-wise, I think one could argue for 1 or 2 Avoid Fates, because it's not always that you have the Eureka play. I'm not sure. I see that Mitch is shaking his head, but
never play Avoid Fate. Never. Whatever you do, it's the same with Drew Sam. You're not listening. Last time I explained it to you, you will never find it. It will never hit. No, I think you're right.
I guess I have better experience with Avoid Fate than Mitch, but there are a few cool like one-offs that maybe are cooler than useful in my like. Yeah, Arborea is nice to see, but I mean, like, what does it do? Because when you win, you just win, regardless. Like
but Arborea is really great, because I play Arborea, and the downside to Arborea is so if I'm playing that with Millstone, I can do something on your turn, right? And you'd say, well, what are you doing here? I'm just waiting to be able to cast Eureka. So I don't mind. I can collect my combo pieces, and then I could just play Eureka and hopefully get all the combo pieces out. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting to get the cards, I just don't play a card, because I really actually want to play them all with Eureka. So that allows me to play multiple cards at once. So that's the kind of idea. It's like a one-of.
Yeah, that makes
try
sense.
to collect your combo
it's
pieces.
It's a cool card to
off.
see also. So yeah. Then I won't complain about that one.
And of course, you can't play Abyss because you have a Lee, so that's not going to work. And Moat's not going to help you in a non-white deck, so that's not going to help you. So it's a fun, spicy card. You do also have Mirror Fireball in this list, so that's the third way to win, and sometimes that does win you games, or could buy you time. So just throwing that out there. You get beat up, your Elite protects you, and then you could just Mirror and Fireball. So this list has a lot of, and then post board you go pure Eureka with big creatures. Jeff, did you have a comment on this one?
I mean, this is max spice. If I were naming this deck, I'd either call it max spice or 4-card combo, because you're really looking for a 4-card combo. You need the Eureka plus the Basalt Monolith plus the Power Artifact plus the kill condition, or Eureka, Ollie, Spectral Cloak, and then something that actually does something.
And what about Channel Fireball? We have Channel Fireball too.
Yeah, Channel Fireball. I wanted to say that when I was like, there's also Channel Fireball in there. So you have how many combos? 1, 2, let's say Mirror Fireball. Also 3, Eureka 4.
I'm going to throw a Lich in there just for fun, right? Because every time I see Eureka and Mirror, like I just Lich Mirror kill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
Or you could do like the nice,
but if we're going for spice,
yeah,
you do the Channel Mirror Universe combo. That's pretty useful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a super fun play. Like if you have say you have like Black Lotus and like a Blue Source, and then you have like Channel and Mirror Universe, and then maybe some card draw action.
Yeah.
Then you definitely take like enough damage to get them into fireball range, and then hope they don't have a lightning bolt.
That's true.
I say we go to episode 53.
So here we are, decklist number 53.
Okay, so I wanted to continue with this kind of multiple ways to win in one deck, kind of like a Project M, right? Project M has a few different strategies to win based on what you draw. The last list did, and this one does too. So just to kind of go through this, there's a one-off Spectral Cloak, and Spectral Cloak is really good to be put on Sarah because it doesn't Spectral Cloak doesn't work when it taps, and that makes the creature not targetable. So if I get the one-off Spectral Cloak, I could put on a Sarah, that's great. You could put it on a Beast because you don't actually want to tap Beast, that's great. We do have Power Artifact combo again in this list with a Fireball. And then you have your Beast Orb combo, and then you have a Stasis Sarah combo, which it's a one-off Stasis, which could be really funny as well. So I wanted to kind of make this list that could win in different ways as well. Obviously, very different from the last list. And yeah, what do you guys? By the way, whenever I play Power Artifact, I do like having a Jam Day Tome in the list because I do like at least one other target for it besides the Basalt Monolith. So putting a Power Artifact on a book is not a bad thing to just have to pay 2 mana and draw a card. A single Transmute it is great, so you can get your 1 disc if you need it, if you have Beast out, or your Chaos Orb. And then the rest are white removal and the power cards to try to make this deck work. And the sideboard is just standard strong sideboard for the colors. And I'm curious what you guys have to say.
The reason I didn't say like the last list was, one of the greatest list was that I haven't checked this list before, and I obviously like this is completely up my wheelhouse. This is something that I would really like to try it myself. It's super hard to come with any type of feedback on a list like this because this is so interesting. But I really like the book also when you have the Transmute artifact because occasionally that's just the right thing to find with the Transmute. I personally kind of like Equal in a list like this because you have a lot of powerful stuff to bring up, and occasionally like you draw the wrong hand of wrong part of the deck, and that also makes like Stasis a bit better if you can put an early Stasis in a sense. But there's a lot of things going on here, of course. So like I kind of like having a creature to target with the Transmute as well. So like having a Trisk maybe, but I mean this deck is trying to do something different, and this is like I would seriously like to sleeve this one up and give it a try.
I mean, first, that's like such an honor to hear. I'm like really happy to hear that. This is like this was a list that I was working on with Greg, Old School MTG at Instagram, and it's gone through a few versions. The Power Sync, I love that one of Power Sync because you have the Basalt, the Power Artifact combo. So once you get that, it's better than Mana Drain either. You can counter anything and tap your opponent's lands. So it's almost like a Time Walk in a certain case. So there's a lot going on in this deck. The fact you love it so much and you want to try it is like you can't get any cooler feedback than that. What do you think, Jeff?
It's really cool. I mean, I don't know how much more I can add. I mean, the only thing it reminds me of is like when I've played a lot of Highlander style decks, like this is kind of like something. I mean, I know you'd have to like pull out like 8 non-land cards to make it Highlander style, but like I love the fact that I can do so many different things. And like the person who's playing against the deck, it's like they play one game, the first game, and the deck feels a certain way. And then they play another game, and then the deck comes out and just plays so differently depending on what hand you have. Super cool. I mean, you can deal with everything in this deck, and a lot of interesting stuff.
And the copy artifacts really are super great, especially with Beast out. Kind of Project M. The idea of that, Magnus, is to do a kind of have the deck play differently every game based on what you draw, right? And that's kind of what this deck is doing as well. So I think it's like in the same wheelhouse as you say.
Definitely.
Anything else on this list, or we go to the next?
We're good. So let's move on.
All right, episode 54, right?
54. And here we are.
Okay, so all right, great. So this list, I wanted to try Eureka. This will not be as interesting as the last two, but I wanted to try to play one of the really big creatures. So I've played a 6-drop Eureka where we have some Urnums, but basically we have Shivens and Shivens, Trikes, and Modis. This one I wanted to go even bigger. So we have the one of Force of Nature. We have a Lord of the Pit. We have a Colossus. We have a Nicol Bolas. So I wanted to try to play some of the 6 drops, but be able to go even a little bit bigger and see how that worked out. When I play Eureka, I really do like Control Magic in the sideboards, because if you're playing against another deck that has big creatures too, you're helping them as well. So I like, and of course you want to play that last, so you have as many options as possible to try to steal your opponent's creatures. And then this deck doesn't play white, so Gloom is great. And I put the playset of Disenchant if I need it in the sideboard. But otherwise, it's I think a pretty kind of standard Eureka list. Since I'm playing green with birds, I can play Crossroads, which if your opponent is not playing creatures, it just turns your cards into burn, and really can beat down your opponent pretty fast by playing that last in your Eureka. I'm curious what you guys have to say.
But the Lord of the Pit was, it's super spicy, but like kind of random. Like, I don't know, Eureka into a Lord of the Pit, like.
It's why there are Birds of Paradise and not Wild Growth. Because Wild Growth is a really great card because it can't be bolted and it does produce green for your Eureka. But if I wanted to try the Lord of the Pit, I don't think it had appeared. That's why I play Bird, so you could just sack the Bird, hopefully, and get into attacking.
I was just wondering if there was a situation with like your Eureka out and a cold bolus, but like you either can't pay the upkeep or like, something happens, like someone plows your bird and then you're like, oh shit, my nickel bolus dies, or like a mine just like undoes the whole Eureka. But I mean, it's super spicy.
As we had it with my lists, like these cards need to appear at some point, and everyone can build Eureka with 4 Mahamodis, 4 Shivans, 4 Trikes. Go for it, I mean, to be fair, also the 4 green for the Force of Nature is hard to produce. I mean, it is still a 5-color deck, so. But he also has the Diamond Valley to crack the creatures, which gives him life. Oh, and there is a Colossus of Zardia directly under the Trike, which is quite cool.
I think this is a really and to answer the Force of Nature thing, also like one of the best cards that you can bring in against Eureka decks is the Blood Moon. I would say, like, many times, like if the opposing decks resolves like a Blood Moon, the Eureka deck has real issues winning because they often don't play like any basic lands. I lost the game at Fish Liver Oil, the last one that was like number 3 or something there before COVID, where my opponent had slow rolled Blood Moon in their hand, and then I played my Force of Nature and figured like, let's go to town, and I was like, oh yeah, I had a Blood Moon, and then the Force of Nature killed me. But I think that's something that you like have to accept when you play cool cards. My basic question here is like, Rebirth, like, first of all, like, I really like the Diamond Valley. That's something I think is super cool in this list, because that both can help, in terms of if you're facing opposing control magics or weird stuff, or if you're Lord of the Pit or other Force of Nature starting doing something weird, so that's a really cool addition to the list. But I think that it's a 4-bird list, or that has been in my head at least, but maybe it's a 3-bird list.
I mean, to be fair, I
don't know.
I would run the 4th bird. I mean, it costs you nothing, and you can cut the Colossus of Zardia. I mean, the other ones are really spicy because you can also hard cast them in a way, but the Colossus is something you will never cast, right? Like, never, ever. It is
because you basically have these like 2 schools of Eureka. You have the school that plays, maybe almost sushi and these kind of creatures, and you have like you can cast all the creatures, and then you have like old school Eureka decks. I had a list in a German magic book, Magic Decks der Sammlung or something from '95. We had an Eureka list that played, one of Chromium, one of Vadvik Asmadi, one of Nicol Bolas, like a bunch of like 19 mana sources, and kind of horrible, but still like all the big cards that you want to play. This, I think, lands in the middle, that you can cast a few of the cards, but you're not like a slave to Eureka here.
Ramp a little bit.
The one thing I'll say about Eureka list is typically when I play them, I'm playing 4 Trikes and 4 Shivans. So Blood Moon will hurt you, but you will have 8 creatures that eventually you'll get to 6 mana and you'll be able to cast through the Blood Moon, which is helpful. And then, of course, turning all of your lands into mountains when you have a Shivan out has to be immediately dealt with, or you will just win the game. But yeah, maybe there should be a 4th bird. This list was done relatively quickly, but I wanted to at least try to get those one-ups of the big creatures. If nothing else, we'll go to...
I really like it. And I like the one of what's called Flash Counter also.
Yeah.
That's a really great card, because a lot of times that swords which your opponent's counting on saving them just doesn't happen. So I thought that was, if I was going to play one other counter besides a Mana Drain, I thought that was the one to play.
Nature would be happy because that's in the Avoid Fate slot.
Exactly. And Flash Counter is actually a cool Magic card and highly underplayed. This is what I would say.
Don't listen to me. Avoid Fate's a good card to have some fun with.
And what makes it even better, if you play with Alliance, you can pitch it into Force of Will. Avoid Fate, you can't pitch into Force of Will. Job done. Drop the mic and leave, Meteor.
Can't pitch.
We don't know what Force of Will is.
You can't pitch 94. That one to Bounty of the Hunt, Mitchell.
That's true.
All right, episode 55 is the deck.
And here we are, hopefully. Yes, 55. Here we go.
Yep. All right, so I'll say that from when I started playing old school in 2018, the 2 cards which I was told could not be used as old school cards as a prominent feature of a deck were Tabernacle and Chains of Mephistopheles. And I worked really hard to try to get a deck with both of them. And the Tabernacle, Greg and I, old school MTG, we did figure out how to make Tabernacle work, and I introduced a really cool new combo, which was in episode 46. And we spoke about that in the last review session. But Chains, I had tried literally 24 lists, and none of them worked. It's certainly easier to try to get work in Atlantic, where you have him to Torak, but in Swedish, it's really tough. And this is a list, I slightly modified it, but the base list was from one of Anna's decks. And I instantly love this, and I think this is not even close that this is the best Chains of Mephistopheles Swedish list. First, the cool thing is you have 2 playsets which in Swedish are never used, and that's Chains and also the Rack. So the Rack in Atlantic or Eternal Central, the Spice Rack decks are really solid list, potentially tier 1s. 4 Hymns, Mind Twist, Hippies, these are really tough lists to face. But in Swedish, you never see the Rack used because you have very limited options to try to get your opponent's hand down to 0. And this list has 6 Mind Twists. If you have 1 Chains of Mephistopheles out, you have 6 ways to Mind Twist your opponent's hand. You have Mind Twist, you have 3 Wheels, that's 4, and you have your 2 Draw 7s, that's 5 and 6. Yes, it is true that you will be Mind Twisting your own hand as well. I hope everybody knows what Chains of Mephistopheles. Maybe I'll just quickly say it. This is a card that...
Let's say what it does.
Right, so it's an enchantment. It's black and 1. It's a black enchantment. And your regular draw step you and your opponent have doesn't affect it at all. But if either player draw other than the regular draw that you have in your draw step, before, and this is if there's 1 Chains out, before you draw that card, you must discard a card first and then draw. And if you're unable to, instead of drawing that card, you mill it. So, for example, there's a Chains out, and I try to Ancestor Recall myself. Before, since that's not the first draw in your draw step, before I draw the first card for Ancestral, I must discard. So I would discard, draw, discard, draw, discard, draw. If I'm not able to, then I have to mill myself. So if there's a Chains out and we cast Wheel of Fortune, both players are drawing 7 cards, and since you start out with 0 cards, you shuffle back in. Before I draw the first card for a wheel, I have to discard a card first. Well, I can't do that, so you just end up milling 7 cards, and you both do it. And if you could play the Rack out, this is very tough for your opponent, because they're going to be taking 3 damage, then if they don't play anything, 2 damage, then 1 damage, where you can go ahead and play your cards. You do have 4 Hippies, and I do believe I play Sedge Trolls and Factories. So these are the creatures that can also deal damage. Sedge Trolls are great because they could be blockers, but they could do quite a bit of damage too. And then you have white removal, as well as your power cards. So the deck actually works really well. It's dangerous because once you have a single Chains out, you could potentially just completely start your opponent with 0 cards with a Rack out. In the sideboard, I did want to play a playset of Shazams just to be a little tricky, and that card is really good, especially if your opponent's not expecting it. But the rest of the cards I wanted to play all instants. Because when you're in this chains pattern and you have to discard, like you draw and then you have to discard for chains, the only thing you're allowed, before you draw another card, the only thing you're allowed to do are use instants. So if you're in that pattern, I just wanted to be, so if you have multiple chains out, so if you have 2 chains out, before you draw your additional card, you have to discard 2 cards first. So this is how you're winning the game. If you have multiple out and a rack. But I just wanted to play instants because you can always, if you have the card, before you have to discard it, you can always just chuck it at your opponent or one of your opponent's permanents. So it's a really cool list. I was really happy to show a list that's a reasonable list with Chains of Mephistopheles in Swedish, and really curious what you guys have to say.
Who wants to go on?
I think it's Jeff's turn to go first, please.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Charlie, you've had a lot to say about it. It's pretty interesting. It's a cool deck. I don't know. I was going to make some joke about how, the chains examples are on, standardized tests and the bar exam and all that. Because, it's clearly more difficult than most things that we play with the Magic. And so you have a 61st card, right? Is that the strip mine? Which one is the 61st card? That's the question of the day.
I just could not cut a card. I like to get to 60, but this is so spicy. I don't want to cut anything. So I'm just like, I'd rather just see the Ancestral Recall slightly less often than have to.
Oh, I can't be right though. I don't know. Maybe do you really need that third plow? I don't know.
It could be a disenchant, I would assume, because disenchant is one of the court cards it takes out would be something like either a factory or a book or these kind of things. And factories are not that dangerous when you have Sedge Trolls, and books are not that good against chains. But I think you could arguably go down to 3 disenchants here. But I think, playing 61 cards is cool. And usually when you see 61 cards, you see the Chaos Orb as a 61st. But I think it's a good optics to say that, at least for Sweden, because then you're really showing this is a restricted strip mine format, right? One strip mine right in the middle.
But I think I would cut the swords, and I kind of want Underworld Dreams in that list. I know when you have chains out, the Underworld Dreams are not good because the people are not drawing when you do the draw 7, but you win anyways when you have the chains and the draw 7.
It's too hard to get the 3 black. It's just not a good
But if
card.
you're cutting the swords, you can cut also the white sources.
Okay, but forget the 61 cards. What do you think of the rack in Swedish and this chains list?
I think this is a spectacular list. This is really cool. I only own 1 chains myself, so I can't steal it. But I think most of the rack or the chains list we've seen, Sweden tries to do something with holding mines and stuff. Get in that lock. But this really shows that it's good enough. And now that I'm thinking while I'm talking, I'm starting to realize that disenchants are really good because they will take Moxons. Because you can almost get in a mana denial path with this deck. Because you can often mind twist away a bunch of things, and then people will have to try to rebuild their hands, because they won't go under the rack. And then if you deny them resources and then you get another wins or something, it can be a real, distressing deck to play against. I think I like it a lot. It's cool to see someone actually make use of these playsets in Swedish, because as you say, it's obviously more powerful strategy when you have access to him to Torque.
True. So with that said, do you guys want to go on to the next list?
Let's do the next list.
Yeah,
I will jump and grab.
It's
other
always
beer.
A little bit shaking for me if I took the right list. That's why I'm always like, okay, please, Charles, tell me that I was right. Yeah, we're
all right. Next list. Let's see it.
Let's give it to me.
Okay, so I wasn't planning on playing another Reanimator list so soon, but Anna won a 64-person Swedish tournament with this Reanimator list, and I don't think anyone's ever won a real event with Reanimator. So I was super happy to see it. This one's aptly named First Place Reanimator. This won the trophy. I do really like it. It has less creatures than I typically would play, but I think it's a really nice list. It still has like some number of Shivans, Modis, and Trikes. There's 4 Trikes. I did not take a good deck photo this time. Only 3 All Howls. Yeah, I really, really like this list. I like the Crossroads and the sideboard. And it was really fun to get to play the winning list. Solkanar is really cool. I don't think I've played him so far in an episode, so really happy to get him in the list. I typically don't play Solkanar because he could be both red blasted and blue blasted. So although I thought this card was really great when I was like 12, I'm not so sure how much I like him now, but he is a really cool card. And yeah, once in a while you may gain an extra life casting Animate Dead or All Hallows Eve with that ability as well. But yeah, this is on his first place Reanimator list that immediately earned us an episode in Brewers Tavern. And what do you think of Magnus on his first place list?
So I actually didn't pre-check this one, so I'm just jumping in and looking at it. So you're getting like the freshest eyes now.
No pressure here. No pressure here.
No. Like, yeah. Like, so obviously, like All Hallows Eve reanimation made that list with Bazaar of Baghdad, which is super cool. And in that case, I love the inclusion of Sylvan Library in a deck like this, because that makes it like Sylvan is so good if you have it like in a All Hallows Eve Bazaar deck, because you're just putting up yourself to put only good things in the graveyard. I heard you said that it won something.
Yeah, on it won a 64-person Swedish tournament with this list.
That is really cool. Yeah, Auden. Yeah. That's true. I recognize it. So sorry, this is a horrible take from me. But yeah,
we picked
I
you
can't
because
complain
you
about
left. So now you're on fire.
And Reanimator is so much harder in Swedish because you don't have Deep Spawn, which Atlantic has access to, and Deep Spawn is a really great card. Getting to reanimate it, and then it mills you in your upkeep to help put more creatures in the graveyard. So it's really nice to see it.
I think Soul Exchange is generally underplayed in Full Empire's formats. That could be a good card.
That's true.
What do you think, Jeff?
I don't have a lot of experience personally with Reanimator lists in old school. I was looking at this and I was like, I don't really know what I really want to change. I don't know exactly the specific role that the 2 lightning bolts play. I'm not saying they should be removed. Obviously, they're great against Hypnotic Specters and other things that come out early. I think that the creatures in this deck are probably bigger and than what the opponent probably has. I understand your point on Solkanar. I played with it a lot back in 2014, 2013 old school, right? And then the red blast and the blue blast just kills it, right? So, but on the other hand, it's 5 mana and it's easy to cast, fairly easy to cast.
It's great pre-board, but you almost always board it out, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know what I would change, and maybe someone can tell me what the bolts are there for specifically, if they have a specific function.
But
I think exactly what you said. You don't want to lose to first turn Hypnotic Spectre, or if you have some creature that's giving you a problem.
But if they hit me with a hippie and I discard a Shivan or something and then animate it, at least there's some mitigation against that. I'm not saying that's not a great plan. Let my opponent's ritual hippie turn 1 hit me a few times and then I'll animate something big maybe. But
unless they get your All Howls or your Animate Dead.
And you only have 2 bolts against 4 hypnotics, you know what I mean? It is super rare that you will probably have them in hand when your opponent plays an early night or an early hypnotic, and I'm totally with you.
You also don't play factory, so that's also to deal with factories as well, because you don't play factories in this list.
True.
I guess my point is why are you worried about factory?
I'm assuming that the discs and the sideboard are brought in, for example, against the deck or something, because that, and I think that's a really cool option because they don't have the disenchants or the traditional answers, but that's a must counter almost, or must destroy for the deck, and then they don't have the disenchant for the Animated or something later. So that's a very cool sideboard card.
True. So, with that said, do we want to move on?
Let's do it.
So, number 57, if I'm not wrong, here we are.
Okay, so for this list, I wanted to play more of a prison control list, and I wanted to try to play with the Serendipity again, which is just a monster in the air as like the win con. So I get to play with Ices, Winter Orbs, some of the Parfait package with 3 relics and 3 Ices. Tabernacle is just one of my favorite pet cards, so I love getting to play with that. And then some white removal and counter magic. So this was the prison list I decided to go for. It's different from something I've played before. Every episode, as everybody knows, we never repeat a deck list ever. That's the rule on Brewers. So it seemed different and interesting enough, and I do like prison lists. And I've been playing a bunch of really aggressive lists in the episodes before, so I decided to switch it up a little bit. And curious what you all think of this one.
Who goes first?
First thought was that like Winter Orb and Winter Orb and Maze of Ith. Like, I don't know, doesn't seem like the best combo, but obviously, like, there's a lot of things it works well with.
But
you do have the relics and Ices.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think I like the 3-3 split. I guess as an initial thoughts. Like occasionally you see the 4-2, like you have the 4 like barriers and then 2 Ices. This looks really solid. Also, I love the Tabernacles personally. I only own 1, and I want to have like 3 because I want to play a Mana Vortex deck at some point, or just have like 1 in my Legends binder, 1 in EDH deck, and then 1 in my lands deck for Legacy. Now I have to move it around, so it's kind of expensive to get 3 Tabernacles these days.
They've more than doubled in price in like 2 years, which is crazy. The thing about Serendipity also is I'm playing 3 mazes and 3 tabbies in the main. So these are plenty of lands that you can sack that are not islands. So probably won't even be a problem.
That was actually one of my follow-up points because it's so lovely to see. Like you have 3 Tabernacles, which is of course a legendary land, and then you can just sacrifice the excess to Serendipity, which is like a combo that I'm not sure that many people have tried out in Magic. But it's like the Tularia, right? But you have 1 Tularia. This looks. I'm not sure. Like it seems possibly a bit light on the card draw, but maybe you get card advantage, by because like I'm only seeing 2 Holding Minds, and maybe that's why I'm thinking that.
I'm not going with, since I'm only going for 3 Ices and 3 relics. I thought 2 Howling Minds was probably enough. Because I still have the Brain Geyser and the Ancestral and the Time Twister. But Meech and I always say we're jacks of all trades and masters of none. Like, true. I don't know if this is the right list. This was built, in one day, and I'm not sure what's good or not. I don't remember having any feedback on it.
We've got copy artifact.
You get like a lot of virtual card advantage by having the Tabernacles combined with the Winter Orbs. So maybe that's the card advantage package.
I somehow want to change 1 Winter Orb to 1 Stasis at least, just to have it. Like it. The Stasis feels so good. Also, with
but my win con are the Dijins, and I can't have Stasis. If I have Sarah out, then I can do that. But I'm not doing that with Serendipity.
You're just afraid, Charles. Just afraid.
Okay, so this one, I think, unless anybody has anything else, I think this is a really nice prison list if anyone wants to try and has the cards. I remember this was a lot of fun. I don't think Meech necessarily
anyone wants to try or have 3 Tabernacles.
Well, you can only hope. Magnus can't try; he only has 1. But
sorry, I only have 2. I can't do it either.
Yeah, I can't. I own 0 Tabernacles.
You have four power plant art in the background, but you don't have 3 tabernacles.
Have we mentioned
less
that?
than 3 tabernacles today.
Yeah,
But like, have we actually talked about that? That's the original art for the 4.
for the 4 power
It's-
plants. Yeah, that's crazy. We need to mention it at least in one episode because it's hanging there like an art print, like it is so
Yeah.
common, usual. Like everyone has it. Look at that, but they are cool. Like they're
And
real.
we're gonna have complaints. Why is Jeff's head blocking one of the one of the paintings?
Yeah,
We
Jeff,
can't
can
see
you
it.
please
Okay,
go
now
out
we
of
can
the
see the whole
picture? We
thing.
want to see the artwork.
Yeah, why is the
Aaron.
camera
Thank
not
you.
zoomed in to the wall? Who's this guy blocking the art?
Yeah. Just
Okay,
invited you
so I
because
think-
of the artwork. Yeah, let's move on to list.
Let's move on to the next list.
Yeah, sorry, and here we are, list number 58.
Okay, so as you can see, I've long left the aggressive builds where we're seeing lots of Shivens and Lord of the Pits and all these big creatures. And this is the second prison list in a row that I played. This is obviously very different from the last one we looked at. This is Mono Blue Stasis, which I hadn't played before. And I think it's a very classic build. Power sinks to hopefully try to tap your opponent out. Plenty of counter magic in case you miss countering something. You do have Boomerang in case of emergency, but those are more to use for your stasis so you can bring it back to your hand. Howling Mines with Black Vices, so hopefully your opponent's you'll fill up their hand, and then they'll take Vice damage and not be able to do anything with the stasis out. This list is a lot of fun to play. Not for Micha to play against. And I did sneak in 1 Tabernacle, so this is a list that you could try if you only own 1. But this is a lot of fun. Oh no, there's 2 more in the sideboard, so sorry.
Yeah. Like so it's like a peasant's main deck, but still, you have to be.
And yeah, I really like control magic in the side. You don't have swords if you're playing mono blue, but that's one way you can deal with creatures. Bottles are a great way. I think there's Hercules, which is a super. If you're playing against an artifact heavy deck, that just works so well with. So I have 1 in the main and then 2 more in the sideboard. So filling up your opponent's hand and then casting stasis is just so good. And then Side Blast could deal with a lot of like Sarah Angels, that kind of threats as well. But that's the list, and I'm really curious what you guys have to say.
Like you have some traditional stasis lists or stasis players that would say that stasis deck's win con is that the opponent draws first with Holding Mine. Because like you just win a decking or something, and they will be a card ahead because they draw first, and then like less insane players play Black Vice, and then Black Vice was unrestricted, like people defaulted to 4, I think. And this looks very prisony. Something like, do you actually need the 4 Black Vices? Could you go down to like 3 or maybe even 2, and then add like an extra reset and Hercules or something?
When I remember right.
I think.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, we played it against my Bug Dreams list, which we discussed in the last review, and I thought, I don't know how you feel, Charles, but the Black Vices were insanely good in the control matchup because when you don't need to play them in the late game, just play them early. I mean, it doesn't matter, right?
I wouldn't cut a Vice. I wouldn't cut a Vice. They were really great, and it is your win con.
Yeah, because it's
just
seriously an open question because I've only I played against Stasis in the 1 Black Vice era before it was unrestricted in Sweden, and it was reasonable, but it was really annoying if you managed to kill their Black Vice, right, because they only had 1. So it's more like Time Vault, like when you see the Time Vault combo decks these days, they usually play like 3, maybe even 2 Time Vaults. So they don't play the full 4. Are like kind of the win cons, but I very much trust you if you say like 4 is the correct number. It's just I haven't tried it out.
And the Time Vault is really fun to play. So this is not the
In
Twiddle
this
Vault,
list,
but
yeah.
getting to play a Time Vault, and when your opponent's under the stasis lock with Vice, and just untapping and say, go ahead and take another turn, take more Vice damage. You still can't do anything with the cards. Is just like a super good feeling when it works out. What do you think of this list, Jeff?
Yeah, so it's interesting on the Vice because I haven't played enough Stasis, right? And there's a few different versions of it. Some people play White, and I don't know if that's they play Sarah or they play Kismet or something. Maybe that's not as good as the mono blue list or the other list that Magnus was talking about. But one thing I was thinking about is. Well, actually, anytime I see a Stasis list, I don't know, for whatever reason, I always want to see like one mana short or something like that. Like, I love mana short, especially in like the board. Power sync is great, like you mentioned, right? So some people don't, I think people who haven't played with power sync sometimes don't realize how good it is. Like, sometimes your opponent will just run a Mox out there, not expecting you to like counter something. Like, oh, actually, like, pay 4 for that Mox or something. Like, totally catches people off guard. Obviously, like, top tier players are going to be, wary and expecting things like that. But, mana short's really cool. I like bringing that in against, control. And then I don't know if this is off the wall, but like, one thought that I had was I was just wondering, like, what if you cut 4 islands and put in like 4 volcanics, and you played like cut 2 more islands and put in 2 cities, and then you had access to red, so you could have like red blast in the board, like a couple red blasts in the board. Because the few times I have played Stasis, which is in more like a type 1 or a Highlander list or something like that for fun. Being able to end of turn red blast my own Stasis to untap and then drop another Stasis that's been sitting in my hand doing nothing can be really powerful. But also being able to just completely shut off a blue spell my opponent has can be really good. That was just a thought that I had.
Yeah, I'll say one thing to answer that. Meech and I, we try to play monocolor lists just for the sake of doing it, because we don't really think that Swedish should just be dual land decks. So, sometimes that definitely. I'm not saying they're the ideal build. Certainly, once you start splashing for something else, it usually gets better. But I specifically wanted to try a mono blue list. But right, that might make the deck have a higher win percentage. But I think it's nice to show what a monocolor deck could do.
If I'm not mistaken, a card which was surprisingly good in that list was the Hercules Recall. If I remember right, Charles killed me insanely.
I killed you with that. That worked so good against you.
Yeah.
That was all. And then when you could Hercules and then you have your Time Twister, it's just really, really, really brutal. Especially if you could back that up with counter magic.
That's true.
This is a really fun list. I really love the prison list. Last episode was great. This one's very different. If I'm going to play another Stasis prison list, it can't be like these two because we never repeat, but I will try to find some other prison list to play again soon. This was a lot of fun.
I would say
if there's nothing else, should we go?
Splash red, as Jeff said, the red splash amazed me a lot. Like, I didn't thought
I'm not going to play the same thing with only splashing red. It will have to be different enough where it will feel like a different deck.
True.
Anything else on this one, or should we go to the next one?
Red splash, you can probably, I don't know, go down from 4 boomerangs and have 2 or something, and maybe 2 red blasts main or something. Is that different enough? I don't know. Obelisk of Undoing. Does that return for like 1 billion mana? Return your Stasis to your hand?
If the viewers say, "Oh, we saw this already in episode 58. This just has 2 red blasts instead of 2 boomerangs," then it will not be good. All right, let's go to the next list and let's see what that is.
Yeah, number 59. Here we are. Oh, that looks
okay. So this was another list that I was working on with Greg at Old School MTG at Instagram. And this is called Breaking and Entering. That's the name of the deck. And the idea is we want to steal our opponent's stuff and beat them down with it. So this list, we are going with 2 Preachers, which everybody knows what that is. Your opponent must give you a creature, but they can choose 2 Old Man of the Sea, which you get to choose what creature you want, but it has to have power equal to or less than the Old Man. The Old Man's power starts as a 2 power. We're playing Reanimator, which is kind of the best of both worlds between Old Man and Preacher, which is you can choose any creature you want, and it doesn't matter the power. That's legendary. We have one of those. I'm playing Aladdin, which is a card, 3 Aladdins, which is a card from Arabian Nights that is never played. Nobody ever gets it. And that card, you could steal an artifact. So I think is it 2 red and 2 colorless to cast, and I forgot, you have to, is it 2 red and a colorless to steal? I can't remember what the, can you look that up?
I will let you know.
All right, so he's gonna. I can't remember exactly how much mana it is, but you basically can steal an artifact, and you can do that every single turn.
1 red and 2 sorry, 1 colorless and 2 red to steal, I think, and 2 colorless and 2 red to.
So
cast.
every up. So unlike the other cards, which are stealing a creature, and you must leave it tapped in order to keep it. Every turn you can steal an artifact, including an artifact creature. So if you're playing against Robot, you're like, okay, I'll take the Suchi this turn, and I'll take another Suchi the next turn. So it's a lot of fun to see that. Now, I'm playing 3 Diamond Valleys because when you're stealing creatures, it's great to be able to sack them and be able to keep stealing more. And because I'm playing Diamond Valley, I put in 3 Rook Eggs. I put in 3 Bolts in case I need to bolt one of my own Rook Eggs, or a factory or some creature in my opponent. I have 3 Psyblast as well. I also have a Sage, which if I'm stealing artifacts, I like the idea to steal an artifact and then sacrifice that artifact to get to draw a card. The Spicy Splash, which this deck isn't playing black, but does have the Jet and does have 4 cities, and the card has not appeared in Brewers, and I am still working on a list that is focused on a playset of this. I haven't found it yet, but it's Evil Eye from Legends. I love this creature. This creature is, I think it's a black and 5 mana to cast. Is that right? I don't remember. I think it's a black and 5? Black and 4. Okay, black and 4, and it's a 3/6, and it can't be blocked except by walls, which nobody's playing. So it's unblockable. And I think that's really so. But if you have that out, none of your other creatures can attack, which I don't really mind because a 3 damage clock still has to be dealt with in a significant. And in the meantime, I could still steal my opponent's creatures and still sack them to Diamond Valley. So my other creatures still have a use even if they can't attack. In fact, I don't really want my creatures attacking. That's not really the plan with it. So I snuck 1 Evil Eye in just to splash because it's only 1 black mana. The rest are disenchants. You can't have Abyss on the board or you can't deal with it. The sideboard looks pretty standard strong, except I am playing Control Magic to go with the theme of stealing my opponent's creatures, as well as Steal Artifact, which goes with that theme again, to try to steal it that way. And because I happen to be heavy Arabian, there's just no way to build the Breaking and Entering deck without relying on the Arabian cards. I'm playing a couple of Artifact Blasts, because that at least gives me a chance to try to stop a bottle before it resolves. And then the rest is Glooms, which is pretty good because you're not playing white. And then it's just some red and blue blast. So that's the list. Jeff, what do you think about this list?
Super cool. I love Evil Eye. And I was going to say, my most important comment is that the 61st card should be the Evil Eye in the dead center of the photo, not the Chaos Orb. Sorry, I think that would be super badass. Yeah, and the second thing was actually not about this list, is that I would put, I'm plugging Evil Eye in a blue-black deck. That's where I feel like I would put that. And then 3, should no one play this Walls? I don't know. I love Wall of Swords in general. I just think it's so cool. So maybe I'll play that. But for Magnus, who just joined us, I said my most important comment is the Evil Eye should be the 61st card in the dead center of this photo, because I think that would look awesome.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But when, like, it also makes it clear that he doesn't play Strip Mine in this deck. The fact that it's Strip Mine the last one, and then it's a Chaos Repair. But I agree, Evil Eye should be the 61st card.
To be
and
I love the fact that you can steal also artifacts and have 2 sack outlets for artifacts, the Sage and the Aether, which is kind of unexpected. I like that. The list looks really
good. I forgot I have an ATOG in the list. So, right, you have 2 sack outlets, and if you steal an artifact creature, then you can use Diamond Valley as well. So you have the ATOG in the corner, the Sage, or potentially Diamond Valleys.
This could
anything else with the Breaking and Entering deck?
Yeah, one last thing is that, we were talking about Preacher, and this came up on last week's recap of 25. I don't know if for some reason, give me an idea for the next one, Charlie. I would love to steal my opponent's stuff and then just somehow use Juxtapose to give it back to them to take another one. Like, I can take it again. I don't know if it's probably not good, but it seems funny.
I think you could probably cut the 3rd Diamond Valley for Arsenal Transmogrant here. Because it would serve the same purpose in many ways, and then you can also, like, as you mentioned, Mitch, the stealing artifacts is easier than stealing creatures occasionally. Yep. So This could be like an Ocean Transmogrant deck, I think. And like worst case scenario, just like pump your you make your eye to 5-turn clock instead of 7-turn clock by making it a 4/7 instead of a 3/6 or 3/6.
3/6. Yeah.
Yep.
I really like the steal artifacts on the sideboard and the control magics. They just go with the theme of stealing your opponent's stuff. So I really thought that was great. This was a lot of fun to play. Or just a unique list.
Supremely cool deck.
Yeah, it looks great.
Oh, okay, let's go over the next list.
So
one more comment?
Oh, no, I don't think I have. I was thinking about something about Priest of Yawgmoth, but I think I'm going too deep. So
No.
I think this is.
It's never too deep. Let's talk about that.
What's the thought about Priest?
No, because like you clearly want to sacrifice stuff, right? Because you play the egg and you play like all these steal effects, and occasionally, the third Diamond Valley can be a bit clunky. And the Priest of Yawgmoth says, sacrifice a creature to add. He sacrificed an artifact, right? It's not. It doesn't just take creatures. It takes artifacts, right? Priest of Yawgmoth.
But you can take Ashnod's Altar, right? Because you can.
Yeah. Like there is something here. Ashnod's Altar, Priest of Yawgmoth, in life combo coming up. That's like. Yeah, it's not here, but it's forming a thought of some sort.
So, with that said, move on to list number 60.
Yep.
Cool. So, here we are. Tell us a little bit about list number 60.
Okay, I don't actually remember whose list this was, but this was in the Derby. Was it this year? This winter Derby, or last summer's summer Derby? I don't really remember, but. I really like this list a lot. So this uses a playset of Ironclaw Orbs, which is never used in Swedish. I mean, the card, but it's not bad because in Swedish, it's the one red card that has a 2 casting cost that has a 2 power. If you're playing Atlantic, there is a Fallen Empire card that is a 2/1. I don't remember what card that is. That has some other downside. But I think the Ironclaw's downside is the Ironclaw can't block a creature with, is it greater than power of 1? Is that, I don't remember exactly. Yep. I think it's a blocking downside, but attacking, you could still attack. So the idea is we're going to be playing a red-white land tax deck. So we still have the Land's Edge. We're still going to be trying to thin the deck out and throwing the lands at your opponent. But in the meantime, you have 2/2 creatures. You have 4 Lions, 4 Ironclaws, and 4 Factories, and you're hopefully going to be dealing damage that way with the 2/2s. So you're going to try to overwhelm with the 2/2s, and then later on you can throw lands at your opponent to win the game. So it's a different type of land tax deck than like the classic 5-color Randy Buehler style. And I was really happy. And this did make the top 16, I believe, of one of the Derby. So I was super happy to get the list in an episode, and curious what you guys have to say.
It's a really, really solid list. I think, like we mentioned before, with when looked at Mitch's land tax list, that it's land tax list should have like 10+ win cons or 1 to 0 win cons or something. Like you should either go the prison style or like the no win or Feldon's Kane win con style, or you should try to some incremental damage in, and then you could use your land edge or something to just burn them out, or the Winds of Change land tax combo to get the actual damage to the board. And I think this is a very good example of like the second school of that. I'm not sure how I think that Vice is really fun in land tax deck because like if your opponent doesn't play lands because you don't want to trigger your land tax, then you get them into a black Vice lock. It's like this incidental combo that I think is really fun. Also the 2-drop that doesn't exist in Sweden is Dwarven Soldier, by the way. It's a 2/1 for 1 and right. 1 red. Yeah, it gets +0/+2, I think, if it's blocked or by orcs or something. So it kills the orc in combat. Yeah,
it's super important that it gets a buff when it gets blocked from an orc, right? Like
yeah, but like I think that if we were allowed to play like 8 Ironclaw orcs in Swedish, you would see much more decks with it, because as you mentioned, like Shirley, it's the fact that we only have 1 power 2 drop in Swedish is the reason that it isn't played, because it's not consequent enough, to build a good slide deck.
Yeah. Jeff.
It's a really good list. I was looking at it before. I mean, and what you said about Ironclaw Orcs, it's exactly right. I mean, some people who may have less experience with this or the format generally may look at Ironclaw Orcs and say, "Oh, can we replace it with something else like Granite Gargoyle or something else?" And like that's just the Orc does exactly what this deck wants it to do. It wants a 2-power that's guaranteed to play as a 2-drop if you have it in your opening hand, pretty much. The only thing I was thinking about was I was just wondering if there's any way I could squeeze in the 4th Chain Lightning, and I just don't know. I don't know if I was debating quickly, like, do we need 4 Winds of Change and go to 3? But no, it's like so powerful. I mean, I'm guessing probably not, because if you have a Land's Edge, if you have a land tax, like, having the winds is just amazing. I just know that was my only thought, at least on the.
I would say you could arguably cut Mishra's Factory. This list, actually. For the 4th
one factory?
Yeah. Because you want to stay operating on like 2 to at most 3 mana before you win. So Factory is actually kind of lousy in this deck.
I also
I could still have them because they're really powerful cards, but I think you could cut a Factory for a Chain Lightning and in before Mano rolls around in his grave. By saying that. But it's...
to be fair, I think you can cut the 2 swords. They're completely off the board. The problem is you're super aggressive, right? With that list, like insane aggressive. You want to beat your opponent as fast as you can. And imagine if he starts with a fast Sarah and the first thing you do is give him 4 life. Instead of just burning him out. You know what I mean? Like, I can see...
But a fast Sarah could just kill you.
So yeah, but like you also have like inevitability in a sense, Mitcha. So you don't have to be that fast, because like if you get like a land tax, Land's Edge lock going, you will kill your opponent in like 2 or 3 turns, regardless.
Yeah, but
so
it feels so random to just have 2 swords. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Like I love three offs and I love 1-offs, but 2 offs is always a little bit sketchy,
Especially when you have the bolts. Yeah, I see that point.
Like,
all right, well, everyone could see this was a top 16 list. It was very different from the other Land's Edge list, and maybe the sword should be replaced. Maybe there should be a 4 chains, although a lot of people think chains is awful, so they think even 3 is too many. But
yeah, the
card's great.
The card is amazing as long as you don't need it as an instant. As long as you want to cast it as a sorcery as it is, it's amazing. But as soon as you need it to be an instant in the game stat, it's awful, like always.
Yeah, but you can't stop it, right? So.
And
unless there's anything else.
Yeah, because this deck, I think Chains is good in this deck, because this deck is like a 4 land tax, 4 Winds of Change deck. And in that case, like any 1 damage, 1 card is 3 damage spell is good.
Yeah, that's true.
Should we go to the next list?
Yes, let's move on to list number 61, and here we are.
Okay, so this was a list that I modified from Dave Third. This is one of my favorite. This is probably my favorite mono white list in Swedish. The idea of this list is we're going to overload on white removal. So if you're playing against me and you're playing creatures, you're going to have a very hard time beating me, because I have 4 swords, I have 2 wraths main, I have 2 mazes, I do have factories that can block, I have jade statues that can block. Wrath is not going to hurt my factories, it's not going to hurt my jade statues. Post board, I can add another 2 bottles, which will deal with a lot of creatures. Nova Pentacle, which would be really annoying. I can add 2 Sarahs, which can block and attack. I can add 2 Spirit Links. If you're playing an artifact heavy deck, you're also going to have a hard time beating this deck. In the main, I have 4 disenchants. I have a Dust to Dust. I have a Divine Offering. Post board, I can go up to 4 Dust to Dust, 4 Disenchants, and 3 Divine Offerings. You're not going to, if you're playing Twiddle Vault or the deck, you're going to have a very hard time with all of that, especially the Dust to Dust. A play set of those post board against a artifact heavy deck is going to just get run over. And you have land tax, which you can aggressively try to thin out the deck. You can gain life with the Ivory Tower. That also hurts creature-based strategies because you're just gaining a ton of life. So you're thinning out the deck. You have both a Feldon's Cane, which allows you to be aggressive even if you have to discard some of the planes. You have 2 of the little books, the Jalem Tomes, which are VIPs, which really help you cycle through this deck and find the removal and what you need. You have a Tormod's Crypt, which is a real win con in this deck, because you could completely remove everything, Crypt, and then use Feldon's Cane, and you win games like that. So you didn't. This deck could have been built instead of playing the Jade Statues, which I think is really cool to show how it works with like Factory and Wrath. You could have put Sarah's in the board to start instead. So you could build this deck slightly differently, but the main idea is to be very heavy on white removal. And I think a lot of opponents' decks are going to have a hard time with this. And being able to beat opponents with just a mono white list sometimes really annoys them. So this was a lot of fun to play. It's definitely my favorite mono white list, and we do like playing monocolored decks, and I was really happy to get this one on, and really curious what you guys have to say.
Guess which list I was playing. Before you start, just guess. After he said an artifact list will have a hard time playing against that.
Well, if you're playing robots, then you're really getting screwed.
Blue, red, black robots.
Because now my swords, I mean, everything's going after you. You're just getting beat. What do you think, Magnus and Jeff?
Okay. I don't know. I kind of forgot my thoughts. I don't have a lot of experience playing with Feldon's Cane. I totally, the deck is going to go the long game, and you can deck them and whatever. You want to get back a lot of this removal, and I don't know. I just look at Tormod's Crypt and Feldon's Cane, and I just keep thinking like, I don't want these in my opening hand, and I don't want to keep drawing these. And unlike the other tax deck that has Winds of Change, or a deck that's blue-white that has recall, and I know you're deliberately making it monocolor probably, like there's no way to get rid of those cards. So if I just draw them and they do nothing, that kind of sucks. And also the sitting in a bottle can be great, or it can also do nothing potentially. I mean, it's probably rare that it does nothing, but I feel like there's so many cards that I just don't want to see, and I have no way to like shuffle them away or get rid of them or anything.
Well, you have.
I don't know. You have Jalem Tome. Sorry, you have the mini.
I mean, I agree. Feldon's Cane is never good when you see it in your opening hand, right? I mean, that's just true. But Tormod's Crypt isn't terrible. It's a 100% counter to regrowth and recall, right? And it does make your opponent's Time Twister worse. So, I'm not saying you'd prefer to have it in your opening hand, but they're win cons. So I think they do a lot of work. And if you play the list, you'll see that they're good cards. And if they're not good, you could always Jalem them away. What do you think, Magnus?
And I like the Tormod's Crypt also, because like it's very hard to win if you're playing like Twiddle Vault and the opponent has an active Tormod's Crypt, and Tormod's Crypt or Twiddle Vault is obviously like a tire deck. I'm thinking, like, well, look at it. First of all, I think this is an amazing deck again. Like, I know I said it is so many decks, and it's not like I think that Mitch's decks were lame, but there's like a lot of spice in this side of the table right now. So I mean, yeah, I love you, Mitcha, and I love your decks, but these are some really cool stuff. Yeah, but if I'm putting on like my critical goggles for a moment, I'm thinking that this looks like a very much controlling deck. Right? You have your 4 swords, your 4 disenchants, your 4 ivory towers, you have Wrath of Gods, you have a bunch of removal. You really are doing the control route here. And then in a sense, it feels like you have quite a lot of win cons. Like a lot of really controlling decks would have like the factories and then like a couple more maybe. Here we have like the 4 Jade statues, and I love Jade statue, but I think it's possible that I would even more love having a Nova Pentacle main deck than the 4 Jade statue. Nova Pentacle is such a cool card, and like if your opponent can't beat the Nova Pentacle, they just can't beat it. Like, because you have 0 creatures, right? Then they don't have an attack phase, and it's just the kind of card that the opponent picks up and reads, and like, okay, what's this card doing again? And then, oh, I cannot win. I need to stop taking distance shot.
And one more thing, the Armageddons are brutal because you're disenchanting or swordsing or dusting everything that's on the table. You're wrathing, and then the Tormund script, which Jeff doesn't like, you're removing all the lands. So there are games where you end up with a lot of missing pieces in your deck. I mean, Armageddons are just really good anyway. I'm not sure if 4 Jades are right. I'm not sure if maybe Sarah should be in their place or if there should be a Nova Pentacle or something. I'm not sure you need that much more help with creatures pre-board.
Cool.
But the reason you have room is because you don't have all the restricted cards. So you don't have to dedicate a huge chunk of your deck to Wheel and Regrowth and Twister and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, like Sarah could be cool also, but like I love that you have 2 in the sideboard because like main deck having 0 proper creatures and you have 0 effect for the Wrath of God yourself and these kind of things. I think that's nice. And
casting Wrath and then having Jade Statue and Mishra's afterwards is pretty funny.
To be fair, the only thing I want to see here is a 4th land tax in the list, in a way. Because the land tax makes every single card, which is important for your deck, better, like the Ivory Towers, the small books, the Armageddons, you know what I mean? I think the dust, you can either cut dust to dust or 1 Wrath, maybe, to add a 4th copy of land tax, just to have 4, to always have them.
It's hard, right? Like, I think this is kind of deck that I would love to sleeve up to like a tournament, like for 8 rounds, and then see what I felt about it, and then do some tweaks because it looks like.
Well,
really
I'll tell you. So I played a version of this on one of Gordon's streams, and I was the first match, and my match took an hour and 45 minutes to win 2 games because my opponent scooped at some point. This is. You are playing for the long game. These are not aggressive decks, but it is a really, really solid list. Anything else on this list? No. I'm not sure what's right here. All of these possibilities.
I think that this is also like arguably a fairly cheap list because you don't need the Moxon here. You don't need the Chaos Orb here because you have the removal and you have the land tax and you have a bunch of ways to cheat on mana and these kind of stuff. So I think this could transform this to a budget list without losing too much.
So okay, let's go next list.
To list number 62. Here we are.
Okay, so this is a list that Kuz gave me. I instantly love it. Like both Meech and I, we want to get Enchantress to try to work. And the idea to this was to play a playset of Dance of Many, which is a card that is almost never played. I've used it in the 2 juxtaposed lists that I've played, but I don't think it's appeared outside of that. But the card is from the dark. It's 2 blue mana to cast, and it's an enchantment that can create a token of any creature on the board. But the downside, unlike Clone or Doppelganger, is that if you don't pay blue in your upkeep, it's destroyed. But the point of this is you don't really care about your next upkeep. So you're hoping to have an Enchantress. You could play the Dance of Many. It's an enchantment. You get to draw a card, and now you have 2 Enchantresses out. And hopefully you could play at least 1 more enchantment, and then you get to draw 2 cards there. And then you're hoping to, play more enchantments, and you want to keep playing more Enchantresses, more Dance of Many. You have Mana Flares, which are going to be doubling your mana. And then you're hopefully going to be able to Mirror Fireball for the win. And you also have Dark Hearts to be able to stack your lands to gain more life. And they're also enchantments. So 4 recalls to get your cards back. It's a really fun list. Super different, and was super happy to get to try this one. But what do you think, Jeff?
I I was thinking, I guess the Dark Heart is you want to get some, because with Fastbond you're taking a lot of damage, and when you're kind of going off, you might need the life to play out a bunch more lands or something like that. I just didn't know how essential they were. I was wondering, like, I don't know if Wild Growth makes any sense at all or not. I'm guessing not, probably in this list, but except for some off random synergy with Candelabra, which I don't think you really need. I don't know. This is one of those decks where I have to play it, and I have to play a lot of games with it to kind of figure out, like, okay, I keep drawing too many recalls that I don't need. Maybe 3 is the right number or something like that. Remember, I played a deck that was probably something similar, where I had like multiple Candelabras and multiple Mana Flares. I guess I wasn't playing Enchantress, so maybe it's totally different. But I would need to play this. This needed to be like shuffled up and like played a lot for me to like really have a good opinion about what's missing.
This list looks super cool, like super solid, but these infinite one-offs makes it so hard. As you said, Jeff, it makes it so hard to tell if that list is cool or not, because at some point when you're playtesting and at some point you need that disenchant badly, you find it, you win. If you're not finding it, you lose. You know what I mean? So you need to practice like 20, 40, 50 games to see how this list turns out. Overall, it looks super solid. It looks super fun to play, especially with that plan of the Dance of the Many on the Enchantress and drawing more cards and playing with Dark Heart and draw more cards. You know what I mean? And play the lands with Fastbound. But all these one-offs look like a little bit weird, because as I said, when you're not having what you need, you lose. But if you have whatever you need, it's so good, and you will probably win a lot of games with that list. But it needs a lot of practice. I would say, welcome back. What do you think?
Thank you. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, like, did you mention Kenneth Mossberg or something, like, because this is Kenneth Mossberg was a guy that played a lot of Enchantress in Sweden in the old days, and I think this is a really cool list. It takes like a lot of power in the list to make it run, and so
we were discussing
hard
the
to say.
Like we were And
I think you need like to have a lot of. You will have to have a few one-offs in this kind of list. One card I love in Enchantress personally is Sylvan Library, which I would probably have even more of. They have 2 here, because the thing is that when you have a Sylvan Library active, you will always hit. If you find an enchantment, and then you will start the ball rolling. But it's almost like a storm deck in old school.
Yeah.
That you will eventually start getting a couple or 3 enchantress or 4 enchantresses with the Dance of Madness in play, and you'll just like draw your entire library. So once the deck starts going off, it's like really more like playing like a Tendrils deck, where you just out everything and you have all the mana, and then you fireball them.
I don't know that card. What does Tendrils do?
It's okay.
Right. So in the end, you can have.
Like when this deck wins, it like super wins.
Charles,
in a sense. And
we're not hearing you at the moment. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean this is so cool, because you copy the Enchantress with the Dance of May, which is also enchantment. You draw more cards, and you have Mana Flares with a single candlestick, and you're either going to Mirror Universe and trade and then Fireball, or you could just go Fireball and untap your lands and just win outright. And eventually you do have a counter and a Mana Drain as backup when you want to do that, which you're going to be doing late after you're drawing a lot of cards. Really cool list.
Once the deck starts working, it doesn't really matter that there's one-offs, because like once it starts going, I mean, like you will draw your entire deck. You'll play all the lands because you have Hasmons, and then you will like.
Yeah, it feels a lot like Mirror Lich, if you ever see that. When that works, you sack the forest to the Dark Heart, but since you have the Lich out, you, instead of gaining 3 life, you draw 3 cards. You could play another forest. You sack. Since you have Fastbond, you sack a land. You take a point of damage, so you sack a permanent, and then you keep drawing through your deck. And this deck will work the same. Really cool Enchantress. We're definitely going to be trying different versions. I'd say we go to the next list.
Yes, let's move on. List number 63. Here we are.
Okay. So everybody will recognize this. This is Day First Bard, Swedish, green with, I think, a black splash, right? Because you have terrors on the sideboard. And tutor. So with a tiny black splash. This was a lot of fun to play. This is very well honed. Dave has played God knows how many games to try to fine tune this. I really like the slug because green, you have 1 casting cost cards. You have pixies with 2, and the slugs, which is, I think it's from the dark, if I'm not, or is it Legends? I think it's a dark card. Right. So nobody plays this card. I didn't even know it existed until I saw this on Dave's list. But it costs 3 to cast, and it's a what is the power tough? It's a 2/4. Right. So it can't be bolted. It has some small downside, I think, but it's not really relevant.
Features gain first strike if it's blocked.
Yeah, you either give it first strike,
and 1 green, and then that gain first strike instead.
I mean, this is great. The giant growths could, and if you need to trade creatures, could do it. You could deny mana with the crumbles and the ice storms. I mean, this is just such a fun deck, and it was a lot of fun to play. I love the Whirling Dervishes in the sideboard, and the Hurricanes obviously can do a lot of work. What do you guys think of this list?
Okay, so 1.5 hours in or something, and I had a few beers. Let me first start by saying that. No, just kidding. But I would argue that this is more like Nikita Celeste deck originally, which won the main tournament at NoobCon. Not the NoobCon Championship, but the main tournament that we have day after in 2019, for example. And it's a Russian player who really evolved the Green Weenie deck list, and a lot of it from a state of don't having access to duels or power cards and stuff. And then Dave has certainly perfected it. But I think the first list that actually placed high were those, and Dave has brought a lot to the table with this list. I will not argue against that. But shout out to the Russians also.
I mean, the first list was playing with Nasp, if I'm not wrong.
Yep. That's correct.
Yeah. Which is also
and it was also yeah, and I think Dave was one of the pioneers that certainly who added black for terror and stuff.
Yeah.
And also I think he was early to going down to 0 berserks, because in the start this was sort of like a stompy berserk list.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to see 3 giant growths. It's such a tuned number. This is not like a spicy, it's clearly a spicy list, but it's like a spiky spicy list.
Yeah.
And the three giant growths is not because he found 3, it's because he tested 2, he tested 4, and he found out that it's the correct number.
Yeah. As you said, I guess he played hours and hours and hours of hours. Only mono green, splashed, looked which card is the most efficient card, and the 3 is probably super tested, solid.
And it's so cool to see how he has evolved his own card pool, Dave Bird. He has got the black bordered Moxen, in the green and black, and he's gotten the black bordered Bayos now recently, and he's still, this is his Project M in a sense. It feels he's just improving it, teching with, and having this his pet deck, improving it in such an amazing way.
That's true.
What do you think, Jeff?
It's interesting. I actually didn't know the history of this deck. I didn't know that this was Dave's deck or anything. And it's been so fun. I mean, it looked really tuned to me, just, from what I could tell. I mean, my only thoughts were, I was wondering, because I played, I think I said last time, a mono green deck that obviously is very different than this, but I wondered, on average, for the 3-drop, how big Gaia's Avenger is compared to the Slug. Because in my experience playing my mono green deck, obviously, it depends on what my opponent's playing, but it very often it was at least a 3/3, if not a 4/4, or sometimes bigger. And in that deck that I played, I also did play Scavenger Folk and some Crumble. So I think it depends on what you're trying to do, right? I want to take out the book, but maybe in my deck I would took out their book or something else and left their maxes, so my Avenger was still pretty big. I'm guessing that Dave's probably heavily tested this over many, many rounds of many tournaments, and the Slug is just better because you don't, for whatever reason, the 4 toughness is really good. And also I thought about Killer Bees. We were talking about Killer Bees last week, and almost every source here produces green except for the factories and the strip. So I did play a deck with Killer Bees and Hurricane in the same deck, and it worked fine. You just obviously have to know when to play. Those are the only thoughts I had. I mean, super tight list.
I played a bunch of mono green with Killer Bees and Gas Avengers and stuff. Also, I think this list, it's almost more like a sly list, and Killer Bees could be a finisher, but I think it's like a little too mana intensive because you always want to like be able to activate your factories. You want to tap your Panel Havens to pump. You want to, in a sense, the Hurricanes are the Killer Bees here. I'd say that you have this like big mana finishers. Personally, from my experience playing with mono green, I would argue that Gas Avenger is most of the time a better card than Spinning Slug. So I would try this list. I would probably also go for Gas Avenger because like if the opponent is in a sense winning, Gas Avenger is much better. It's enough that they have like one Mox, a Soldering, and then they activate the factory, and then you have a 4/4.
I so badly want to summon Dave Fifth Barth now. I so badly want to
summon, I would love that as well.
Appears and he
he's like I was probably like the best or the only old school green player in like 2014, and then I haven't done like anything good with that deck for a while. And then Dave has like thousands of game probably under his belt, and can school me so much on like how the Spinning Slug is actually better than Gas Avenger. So if you want like a showdown, I will I will just bend over, but I mean like it's my experience. I like the Gas Avenger quite a lot.
Next review special incoming with you and Dave Fifth Barth and just hearing a 2 hours fight over Gas Avenger and Spinning Slug review check.
Misha, we have 12.
Commented that, because I proxied a few Sylvan libraries at some point over Spinning Slugs, and like painted over and said like this is a Sylvan library, and Dayford Bard, did me and said like you can't disrespect the slug, and I said,
you can't disrespect the slug.
We should move on. We have 12 lists left. We need to move on because our maximum hour. So
yes,
let's move on to the next list.
Next list is number 64.
Okay, so 64. This was a list that Anna gave me. The idea is pretty simple. We're going to play on Mountain Walk, so we play a playset of goblins and a playset of Mountain Yetis. And Mountain Yetis are 4 to cast, but they're 3/3 creatures that not only have Mountain Walk, but they have protection from white, so they can't be swords, which could be really annoying against decks that are relying on that. And there's very few creatures in Old School that have protection from white. So I think you have the Black Knights, in Swedish at least, you have the Black Knights and you have Mountain Yeti. I don't think there's a third creature, but this is the idea. And you're going to give your opponent mountains by playing Blood Moons, which even if they are playing 2 colors or even a monocolor deck, they almost certainly are going to have Mishras or a library. So you're likely to be able to give the mountains anyway and just be able to attack through. And then you have a playset of Chain Lightnings, Bolts, Black Vices to do damage, and Ball Lightnings, which are a lot of fun. And you do have 1 Shivan. In the sideboard, because you are playing mono red, which I do love monocolor decks, you do have to be careful of Cop Red, and to deal with that, we're going to play a playset of Suchis, which don't care about Cop Red, and a couple discs, which would be great. And then you're playing Shatterstorms, because you could easily cast the 2 red for the Shatterstorm, and you don't really care about your artifacts if you need to bring them in. So that's kind of the idea to this, and I'm love to hear what you guys have to say.
Okay, so Wall of Putrid Flesh was the third one. That has protection from red.
Good call on that. I completely forgot about that one. Good reason.
God, that was good to know.
Yeah, good to know. Why is that not on this list? What do you think of this list?
But I think this is a really sweet list. It's very hard to say because, like, in a sense, I don't think that it's a Chain Lightning list. I don't think Chain Lightning is that good in this list. I could see more fireballs, and if I saw fireballs and all these things going on, I would love Gauntlet of Might, because then you get your Mountain Jet like super indestructible, and like in a mono deck, Gauntlet of Might is just like a really good card. On the other hand, it's a bit of a non-bow with the Blood Moon, but I don't think that's it's a big enough non-bow that it doesn't really matter, I would say. So I would cut like maybe one Shatter and Chain Lightnings for some combination of like Fireballs and Gauntlets, I think. But that's just like my immediate spice thinking. But I love this list. This is a really cool list, and I haven't seen anything like that before. I haven't seen before Mountain Jet list before, so this has my hats off as well.
Jeff,
What do you think, Jeff?
On the end, I love Mountain Yeti for the reason that you stated, that not being able to have it die to swords is awesome, and I'm a huge fan of Ball Lightning too. It's just super fun to play. Blood Moon's going to wreck a lot of people's day, so that's going to be good. And then a lot of the decks that Blood Moon is going to be a problem for also probably don't like Black Vice. Not all of them, but some of them. So their Disenchants and things like that will be overloaded. Plus, you still have the factories. So, I don't have too much interesting to add on this one. It's super sweet. It's super spicy. Maybe we move to the next one.
yeah,
All right,
Just quick, like
Yeah,
it's a wild non-bow. It's a wild non-bow to play Chain Lightning in a Blood Moon deck that tries to win on a 3/3. It's like they will probably have double red when bottom. So it's like this is very.
You're not wrong about
Chain
that.
Lightning
That. That should be changed for something else. Okay, next list.
And here we are, list number 65.
Okay, so this is another list that is from Anna. We were playing, and I told him I'd really like you to build a list for me that has. I mean,
Oh, you
Channel
have.
Fireball might be the
Wait.
most.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you here. You have deck builders for you? 1 second.
Well, I mean, I play decks of people that I really like their brews. So
Just kidding. Sorry.
this is one of them. And Anna and I have very similar brew styles. So, but I asked him. I said, build a deck that, and he played it against me. That plays, I think, the most classic combo from like 93, 4, 5 was probably Channel Fireball, but Instill Energy, Animate Artifact, and Time Vault was definitely something that we were talking about in 1994 for sure. Yeah. I remember hearing about this combo. So the idea is you get infinite turns because your Animate Artifact turns your Time Vault into a creature. But unlike Titania's Song that it loses its abilities, it still is a 2/2. It would be a 2/2 creature that can also tap to take an extra turn. And when you put Instill on it, you can untap it an extra time in the turn, and you could just tap to take an extra turn, and you get infinite turns. And in this episode, I just killed Micha with this. Like, I was able to put this combo together very easily almost every game. I don't know if it was just my day or what, but Micha was pretty frustrated playing against this. It's a lot of fun. You do have counter magic to try to protect it a little bit in white removal. You could play Abyss because any creatures you have are going to be from your Animate Artifact. So the win con here is once you have your infinite combos, is eventually you're going to put an Animate Artifact on either another Time Vault or a Jandor Saddlebag, which is another way outside of Instill Energy that you can also get infinite turns by untapping your animated Time Vault an extra turn. So it's a lot of fun. I wanted to show this really classic old school combo in an episode, and it did very, very well. Love to hear what you guys have to say.
Who wants to start? Don't be shy, guys. Don't be shy. Come on.
I really like the combo. It's super fun, right? So the first time I played Singleton in old school, right? Slightly different, of course. I had that combo in it, and it was super fun. So I want to take this and I don't know, not necessarily that this is good, but I want to cut the Abyss. I want to cut the Saddlebags. I want to play Birds, a third Instill. I want to play Prodigal Sorcerer and at least one Stasis. And I think that would be super, super fun. Yeah.
The Saddlebags was not being cut. There's no way. I want to try to get as many different cards and episodes, and if I'm not playing Saddlebags in this list, I don't know where I'm playing it, so that was definitely earning a slot.
You play it in the Colossus Astardia deck.
And like you're also clearly playing Saddlebags in the Time Vault Xenic Poltergeist deck.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you have a
and
lot
Saddlebags
of
is a win.
Colossus of Sardia loves the bags.
But that's also a win con. I can also
I think
put an animate
Saddlebags is
artifact
in general. Sorry.
Go on.
Oh, that's also a win con. So later on, after you have your infinite turns, you could play the Saddlebags animated, and that you could just kill with it. So that's the other.
I think if I have infinite turns, I don't need Saddlebags to also be the win con. Like I think I'll be all right.
No, but Saddlebags in general is Saddlebags. I think is a bit of an underrated card in old school in general. Like I played in Brothers Highlander, and there's like a lot of scenarios where being able to untap a preacher quickly, or there's a lot of tap creatures that are like really nice to untap with Saddlebags, and it doesn't have to be like the big effects like Royal Assassin or Demonic Hordes or these kind of things. Like just being able to untap Protocol Sorcerer or whatever. There's like it pumps a Mishra's Factory if you want it. Like it's like a lot of small utilities on the Saddlebags. So I think it's better than people would get credit for. I'm not sure you need more one here. I think that Jeff's edits were the perfect ones, so I don't have that much to add.
So
I also think that like I ran like one or two twiddles here at random could be good, because like the twiddles are either buying your turn because you're tapping something the opponent doesn't want, and you play like 3 Time Vaults, and even without Time Vaults, twiddle is a reasonable card, and when you play the Time Vaults, twiddle can be more than reasonable.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay, I'd say we go to the next list. Yep.
And here it is, number 66.
Okay, so clearly this is a tier 1, very spiky list. This is painted green. There were a lot of new cards. There's so many new cards here, I don't even remember what all the names are. So there's Green Ward. I don't remember what the card is above Leprechaun. I can't even remember.
Life Lace or something like it. Is it Life
Thought Lace? It's Thought Lace.
How do you own these? Like these are like expensive cards in Black Border, and you don't know the Life Lace is like a good card, bro.
Yeah.
So the point of this deck is, and I wanted to play the painted green deck. There's another version I have that is green black, but we Leprechaun, if it blocks something, turns it green. The Green Lace, I'm forgetting all these names, but you could turn a creature green with a card below the COP green, and then you could just or you could put it on your own. And then you could attack, right? So like if you turn one of your opponent's green, you can also give your opponent protection from green, so you could just attack and you could just win a game that way. If you put protection on green on your if biff, it can't kill itself. You can hurricane for as many as you want. So there's a lot of funny things that you could do with this. So I really was happy to try to get that on a episode. For sideboard, I just decided, since I'm playing green, to play Eureka and to play some creatures that we hadn't seen. So the beast we hadn't seen before, as well as a couple of a Colossus and a Channel to try to help get it out. But yeah, this is the painted green list. It is quite funny to try to turn your opponent's creatures green and then turn your own green and be able to attack through it, or you could try to put protection from green on a Force of Nature, or you could just use your COP green to like not take the Force of Nature damage, and you have for 6 mana an 8/8 trample, which would be really funny. So there's a few different things you could do with the list. Curious what you guys have to say.
So also to add, like the Life Lace doesn't just turn creatures green; it can turn spells green as well. So I've seen a person win a match with this deck by the opponent getting Earthquake for the win, and you're the Leprechaun player just like Life Lacing the Earthquake, making it green. All his creatures survives to do protection from green, and then he pays for the Circle of Protection green, and the player who played the Earthquake, his board is dead, and the green guy just survives. So this is like I'm like, I would argue that you don't need to splash blue for power in this deck. It's so good. You could add main deck Spirit Links instead of the power cards. I think like Spirit Link is usually pretty good with Force of Nature. I mean, this is like almost a perfect list.
True.
Maybe cut the Ancestral Time and Time Twister, and then you have best magic deck that you could build.
What do you think, Jeff?
I think, I think Magnus took the one good comment I had, which was Spirit Link seems awesome with If Biff and Force of Nature. Cutting blue, I mean, it depends if you just want spice or, I mean, I think the deck is better with the blue powerful cards in it, but, it's a good opportunity if you want to, have a two-color deck, cut the blue. Play something really cool like you've already played, like Gabriel Angel Fire, which is not good.
And isn't Gabriel not also red? Or is it just green?
No, Gabriel Angel Fire is 7 mana. It's 2 green, 2 white, and I think 3 colors.
I thought it was red, green, white,
nope.
and 4. But
nope.
Okay, cool. I'm with you.
It's still bad though, either way.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's better than just 2 color. Well, obviously because it's easier to cast, but it doesn't get blasted.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next list. I don't think we can say too much about Painted Green.
And I would say next list, Magnus need to start again, right?
Well, if he's not back, we'll have Jeff start, of course.
Here we are.
We know when the next list is up.
67 is up.
Okay, so this is called Fogatrice. Again, this was a really fun episode to get to play a lot of cards that had not appeared and would be very hard to appear. So we have 4 Cockatrice, we have 4 Basilisk, which they have Death Touch, so anything that touches them dies. And we have a lure, which, I mean, back in the 90s, this would be really fun to try to put a lure on, ideally, your Thicket Basilisk, not your Cockatrice, because it doesn't fly and attack. So every creature would have to block, and then every creature would die. This has Darkness, it has Holy Day, it has Fog, so this was really annoying for Micha to play against, but really, really funny to try to put a lure on one of your Thicket Basilisks, force all your opponents to basically self-destruct, and you could buy a lot of time. You could block a creature with one of your Basilisks or Cockatrice, kill it, and then cast one of your Fogs or Holy Days or Darkness, because all that matters is that the creatures block, not whether damage is dealt. So this was a lot of fun, and really curious what you guys have to say.
Sure. I think when you were done, they said, "Oh, it's time Magnus needs to go first."
Oh, sorry. I said
it's funny.
because you left.
So your last point about that the creature just has to have been blocked or has to have blocked. Does that work with Mazavith then here too? Does the creature die? Yeah. Okay.
It still dies. It has Death Touch, so Maze is going to prevent the damage, but it's still blocked.
Okay. Yeah. So I think
my thought was Darkness, right? So you can cast Darkness or Holy Day after blocking, and you're still going to get one creature.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure about the remove from combat piece or whatever, or I don't remember. But so I was thinking maybe Maze would be interesting. But if I had the opportunity to play a deck that had lore in it, I would have to play. And this is maybe just me. It's not the theme of this deck. I have to play one Craw Giant, because when I was like 11 years old, I learned to play Magic. Like, I went up to my stepmother and I was like, "You take a lure and you take a Craw Giant, you put a lure on it." Like, that was like the best combo ever. The Rampage 3, so your opponent had to block with all their guys. Your Craw Giant got +3/+3 for each one beyond the first. You trampled over it. It was so cool.
I mean, you're missing the coolest combo is the Blaze of Glory, which has not appeared before. So your opponent has, 6 creatures, attack with all, and you only have one Cockatrice. Well, you can cast Blaze of Glory on the Cockatrice, and the Cockatrice now is able to block every one of the attacking creatures, not just one, and it's going to give Death Touch to all of them. So that would be pretty funny. And then you can even cast a Fog, and your Cockatrice can even live. It could be really funny. But the Blaze of Glory hasn't appeared before, and if that situation just happens to come up, that would be really a funny thing to do as well. Magnus, what do you think about this list?
Like it would have a hard time against the Animate Wall of Swords deck, right? Because these doesn't kill wolves. No, but I mean this is clearly no, but this is clearly an amazing list. The main deck I think is just like very close to perfection. Like this is an amazing main deck. Sideboard, I think, like if I would face something like a Lotter deck or something that would win mainly with creatures here, and I play 10 fog effects main deck, I think it would be kind of fun to have a transformation sideboard to turbo fog here. So instead of like having a bunch of good cards in the sideboard, maybe like 4 Millstones, 4 Holy Minds, then the fourth Holy Day, the fourth Darkness, and then you can like transformation sideboard into a turbo fog deck with the Millstones as the win con, which would be
you
pretty
could
cool.
see kind of what the point is, that if, let's say I'm playing against a deck that doesn't play creatures. Well, I have to take out the fogs, the darkness, the holy day. So then I figured at least I would put in good creatures. And yeah, I still would have cockatrice and the basket was going to be great. But I wanted to play them, so I needed at least some cards to bring in against the dead cards.
That is true.
That kind of was the point.
Yeah, that is true, because like my suggestion would be to be better against deck that you could potentially win against.
No. I mean, I want some plan against a creatureless deck. So a basket isn't a good deal if you don't have creatures, but at least I'm bringing in the mana efficient creatures on the sideboard.
Yeah.
Anything else, or I think we should move on because we're a little bit short of time.
And here we are, 68.
Okay, so this is the Stone Calendar deck, and that's another card from the dark that never sees play, 5 mana, and once it's out, all of your spells cost 1 less. So kind of the idea is I play one out, hopefully I get a second one, or copy artifact it, and at some point you could start playing some of your cards for free. You get a Stone Calendar and a copy artifact out, all of a sudden you can play your Felwar Stones and your Winter Orbs and your Relics for free. I do have a Aladdin's Ring, which is 8 casting costs. I want to try to take some advantage of that discount. The Ices also become much easier to cast. And so you have a Parfait package, and that hopefully is easier to get out. But the Titania Song is why this deck was made. So maybe the Stone Calendars can help you. I mean, it's not a good card, but like I'm trying to show what like the decks could be. So hopefully they can help you get a discount early, and at some point you play Titania Song, and then they just become 5/5 creatures, which are, that's a solid creature in old school. Yeah. And they get summoning sickness based on when they were cast, not when they become creatures. So you could just attack that turn if they weren't cast that turn. And then I have white removal and blue power. So that's the main idea, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
How did it work, the deck?
It worked okay. I won some games with that. I don't think it was super by any means, but I definitely was able to. I remember casting cards for free. Like I had 2 of them out, and any Winter Orb Howling, I could just cast it. And definitely, if you could cast Ices for 2 manas, that's not terrible.
I think I was
I think the combination.
So it was kind of hard, but the deck worked pretty okay-ish. It was episode 68, Protected Artillery. I don't know if you remember, Charles. We're a few episodes ahead. It's like sometimes we don't remember how good or bad the deck performed.
With the Copperheads. But I mean, it doesn't almost even matter because that's just one match. I mean, that's the general plan, and and I don't think it was terrible by any means, but. I wanted to show Stone Calendar.
I love the combo of Titania Song and Stone Calendar, because Titania Song is usually you look at what kind of artifacts you have. I look at like books and ICs and these kind of things, but having Stone Calendar combo, getting out a bunch of like big artifacts with Titania Song is I think it's very good use for Stone Calendar and Titania Song. It's a very cool deck. It's a very cool take on, tap out control or parfait, or what do you call it?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that everyone liked this one. We'll move to the next list. 7 lists left, and we have 30 minutes. So this is one of my own builds. This is Eureka Moon. I really like this list. The idea to this list in like 30 seconds is it's only green, and I do have blue power, I believe, but otherwise it's green and red. Even though green and red doesn't have removal, I can't remove like Mode or Abyss or COP Red or City in a Bottle. Those big killer cards this deck doesn't care about. The creatures were specifically chosen for that. Bottle will take out the Urnums, but I still have Trikes and Shivans and Suchis. COP Red you can play, that only takes care of 4 Shivans. I still have the rest of the other 12 creatures that will deal damage. Moat is not, even Moat, I still have 4 Shivans that can fly over, and I think I guess I took them out of the sideboard, but I usually play an If-Biff or 2 in the sideboard just for that case. So the idea, and you have 4 Blood Moons, which really, which you almost, I don't want to say you can always cast turn 2, but your plan is to cast it turn 2 pretty much all the time because you have Wild Growth. So your idea is you're playing Blood Moon turn 2, and meanwhile you have Wild Growth, which gives you access to green, and you can cast your Urnums, and you do have basic forest. So the idea is very quickly you want to be able to cast Blood Moon either turn 1 or 2, which screws over a lot of decks. And even though you can't remove a lot of the big cards without Disenchant or Swords, you pretty much, there are no really big killer cards for this list. Abyss, you still have robots, 8 robots, so you're not removing them, but you have a good chance of, and you have Crossroads in this list too to deal with Abyss anyway. What do you guys have to say about this? I think this is really a great list.
Jeff.
I don't have a ton to say on this list. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me. You want to ramp, into Eureka and play a bunch of big dudes, and Blood Moon messes up their stuff. It's cool. I don't know. It's cool.
And on like a meta commentary, I think that the last session we had, I felt like I want to have, or so not living lands, what's called like the ancient world that makes all lands 1/1s.
Living
Living
Plane.
Plains.
I want to own like 4 living planes because there's so many living plane decks you can build, and right now I feel like I should get 4 Eurekas because there's so many Eureka decks you could build.
Yeah. To be fair, I would cut the blue power. You don't need that. The deck is so strong. I would probably run like Llanowar Elves or Birds just to ramp out even quicker the Eureka or the Moon. Just to be sure, because I know power is good, but without the power, the deck is even more straightforward and hits harder, I guess. And you're really sure that you cast Blood Moon turn 2. Because you have like 7.
You seem like a good guy, right? Yeah, then you could always like cut the library to the sideboard as well, because then you're like a super gentleman. You don't play any blue power, you don't play Mind Twist, you don't play library in the main deck, and still have like a bunch of cool cards.
That's right.
Last I'll say is this deck only plays 3 Eurekas because I'm not relying on it too much. I do have 8 cards, which are 6 casting costs, and 8 cards, which are 4, which are the Urnums and Suchis. Yep. And I do have Wild Growth, so I'm kind of splitting the baby between being able to play out the 4 mana casting costs, which I probably don't need it, and the 6 casting costs, where maybe I can get out quicker. Obviously, if my opponent's locked under Blood Moon, I don't want to cast Eureka to help him cast, so that's why there's only 3. I'm not pushing it too hard. I really love this list, and I'd say let's go to the next list, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because we're a little short. The next list, let me know when it's up.
Yeah, here we are, number 70.
All right, this is Anders' Composition A deck, probably. Everybody knows this one. This is definitely not a spicy list. This is a very solid list. Shazams, Hippies, Underworld Dreams, White Removal, Power. I like the Sangir Vampire. That's always a cool card from when I was a kid. A single dib. This is just a solid list. I wanted to play. This is what Anders is known for. This is his list, his baby, and I wanted to get it in an episode and love to hear what you guys have to say.
It's a greedy list, right? I don't mean that in like a really negative way or anything. I mean, it's greedy because it's got 4 colors in it. You have Underworld, which is triple black. You have a lot of double black spells, and then a couple of splashes. With that said, like these cards are really powerful and they're really spicy. So it seems like it was super fun to play. I just wonder how difficult it was to cast. I mean, I guess all your lands play, almost all of them allow you to give black mana. So maybe it's not as greedy as I initially thought, but it just seemed to me.
But I don't think it's that greedy on like the black part, because it has 15 black mana sources, 16 if you include the Lotus. I mean, it could be like a bit dangerous because like if this deck faces Blood Moon, things are kind of complicated because he needs to find the White Mox and then a Disenchant. But I think like it's reasonable for the underworld here. I mean, like this is cool. It's like it feels a bit like the classic dead guy list from old school, where you see the disenchants, the sinkholes, the swords of plowshares, and the hippies and stuff, and then you just add like a bunch of good cards from other colors. So you have like the lightning bolts and the blue power and the surrender befreet and these kind of things. So I think it's a really sweet list, and I'm always partial to a list that plays 4 GSM Jins. So this is I hope this list won.
This list
Oh,
won.
it did. This was really good.
I tried again a green-white list, and I don't know why in Swedish old school, whenever I play just green and white together, it's not working at all. I have no idea why. It's just not happening for me.
Let me tell you why.
Are you playing
Micha
Lord
doesn't
Magnus
like
in the green-white lists, though? Are you playing Lord Magnus?
Yeah, that's that's true. But when I see that kind of list, when I see the list, and I look at the sideboard, I think the only card which feels off in the list is that Fireball, because that list looks like after land number 4, you don't want to put a land drop anymore. Just my opinion. I know there's the Sengir for 5, but you know what I mean. Like it's just a one-off, and a Fireball. If you just can cast it for 4, then just play Psyblast over it, right? Because the Psyblast is 3 mana, deal 4 damage on average.
Or Geddon, right? Like Geddon would be really good to board in against like the deck or
Fireball
something.
Just doesn't fit in the list, you know what I mean? That looks like a card which on average deals like 4 to 5 damage, and then a Psyblast, or as you said, a Geddon is just better because you slam a Jusam, finish it with an Armageddon, and win the game.
This was a really fun list. It was very solid. I love Jazam, so I will play playsets of it. Micha does not like that card. He always plays Suchi. But that's
like
why we have
friendship over, Micha.
Yeah, I know.
Jesus
I
Christ.
know. A lot of people don't understand me why I don't like Jusams, but the Jusam feels so outdated when you have 4 Maze of Eights and stuff like that. So
is it the art? Is it the flavor text? Is it like the general?
No, there are some cards in old school Magic which just whenever I play them they betray me, and whenever I play Jusam, I'm the guy between his fingers. I'm.
Well, don't play. So
Micha should be there. Yeah, we
don't worry. I'll play Jazam and avoid fate. You don't have to play that. That's why I'm playing against you. Let's move to the next list because we're definitely running short of time.
And here we are, 71.
Okay, so this list is called Adventure Island. The creator is a guy named Magnus. I would really love to hear what he has to say, but it's too bad we don't have access to him, unfortunately. So, is there a Magnus here that can tell us about this list? Please, you have to start. This is your baby.
Yeah. So this is it's an earlier version of the deck actually, and I had a later version of this deck that I played in Official Royal Cup 3, and that actually won the most creative deck at that tournament. So it didn't win the tournament, but it won a prize at the tournament at least. That had like some. So I know the changes I would make to this deck. For example, like I would go into 3 Simbads and add a main deck Force of Nature, and it's possible to cut one of the Master of the Hunts main deck. And there are a few things that I know that I made, because like when I played this list, I knew the tweaks that the deck found like after a while. Because as this list stands, this list had top 4'd the Jumping Jesus tournament in Oslo a bunch of years ago, like 2018 or something, and it super loses to Underworld Dreams, and it super loses to Mephistopheles, which were 2 decks I faced, because like it's so dependent on getting draw triggers, because like you get draw triggers from Sylvan Library, you get draw triggers from Simbad, and then you can use those draw triggers to do a bunch of weird stuff like with the Ring of Maroof or the Aldin's Lamp, or just like Sinbad getting draw triggers that you can use for Sylvan and stuff. And if people messes with your draw triggers, this deck really loses. So and then you had a bunch of things that just worked when you got into that state that the deck works. Like Master of the Hunt is really good when you get the deck going. But if someone messes with you and don't get the deck going, Master of the Hunt is like a 2/2/4/4. So there are some tweaks, but the main idea with this deck is to have like a bunch of different attack points, as we talked about earlier. And you can win like with the Power Monolith combo. You can win with getting a huge card advantage by Sinbad and Sylvan Library, and you can win in later versions by just like beating down. Later versions has main deck Homotogens and Force of Nature. It's a really fun deck to play, and people really don't know what to do against it. Because there's one scenario with this deck where I'm sitting there, I got the Power Monolith going, and the opponent doesn't really know what to do, so I just get infinite mana, and then I have a Sinbad in play. So I get infinite mana, play Transmute Artifact, transmute the Monolith itself to Aldin's Lamp within like a lot of mana in the pool. Try to draw a card with Sinbad, replace the draw with the Aldin's Lamp trigger. So I get to check through my library, and then I find a Stream of Life. Then I just get like all the life I could possibly have. Then I'm kind of like cloaked Ali mode, and then I can eventually win. So there are like a bunch of like weird interactions of cards. That's a long rant, but I really like this deck.
Jeff, what do you have to say? What do you think?
That just blew my mind. That's really cool, right? All that stuff. I'm thinking, you get the Stream of Life. Like, could you get, you play a, what the hell is it? Like a rocket launcher and just kill them, right? Oh, you have to wait a turn, right? You have to wait a turn with the rocket launcher, I think. Yeah. Otherwise, no, this is just super cool. And I every time I get to play a deck that has a reconstruction in it, I get super happy for whatever reason. I don't know. And then the other thing I have to add is just because we were talking about the last thing. So here's your favorite Jazam.
Perfect.
Right? And then I have a Maze of Ith to go with you. So
we have
got hungry apparently.
What happened to those?
Well, so this was done by a cat, not my cat, and it was before I owned it. And then this was given away as like I think a second or a third place prize in a tournament, and like third place was like a playmat or something, and I got third and then traded the playmat to get this from the second place prize winner. And
amazing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wish
it's been through the better days.
I wish I was at home right now, because like I have the Zach Dolan's old Chaos Orb, which he had when he won the first World Championship, because he sold a bunch of his cards, but his Chaos Orb was chewed by his dog. So his as a relationship to that, Jusem Jin that was attacked of a cat. So a Chaos Orb that was like actually chewed by a dog. Then that made him not sell it, so he sold a bunch of his cards, and then he kept his Chaos Orb, and then at some point some guy like, okay, can I just like, it's kind of cool because it's your Chaos Orb, but can I get to do with like a letter or something, and now I have it. So like shoot cards also have it's a history with those cards, right? It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move on.
Really cool list. Let's move on to the next. We have 4 lists left.
And here we are. List number 7.
This is a list I played. This is one of Ollie's lists. It's a really, really fun list. So you're it's a Nether Void list that is going to try to Ice Storm and Sinkhole your lands. Black Vice, which will deal damage. Hurkles, which will hopefully fill up your hand. A single copy of Stormseeker to deal damage. You have your Wheel and your you have your Time Twister. Unsummons to try to like bounce a card back. Creature back. That's kind of the plan. It's a lot of fun. I really like the sideboard, seeing the Drops of Honey, Mazes, Tabernacle, Glooms. I really like this deck. It was a lot of fun. and love to hear what you guys have to say.
It's my vote because it has Stormseeker. I think Stormseeker is awesome. A little hard to cast under the Nether Void, so hopefully you do it like much later when you're going to win with it, or like earlier. This is a fun list.
Yeah, like I always get a bit confused when I see a Nether Void list without 4 Nether Voids or without the Mana Vault, because Mana Vault is so good in general in Nether Void lists. I think this is a deck that doesn't really need it, because it does the thing with the birds and does the thing, with the circles and on summons and stuff. So I think it's a really cool list. Interesting take on Nether Void.
I love that list. Also, the fact that you have the Hercules recall to fill up your opponent's hand. And the fun fact is, a lot of people just don't know that they can cast the spell still under Nether Void.
Yeah.
They just need to
that's
pay
a very
3
good point.
more, otherwise it is countered. So they're sitting there, filling up their hand like, oh god, I can't cast my Mox. 3 damage out of the Wise, 3 damage out of the Black Wise, you know what I mean? And then they do not cast spells because they think they don't have the mana for it. But they can, but it's just countered. So they would be at least secure from them.
But Unsummon is really good, using rituals or a Lotus to try to cast a creature and unsummoning stuff. And you're also destroying their lands with your 8 land destruction. So it might be hard for them to try to get the mana to cast it. And then if you have Nether Void, then it's definitely not making it to the table.
I think that all you like old school guys know who Sean O'Brien is. It was like the O'Brien school, the Nether Void school, like Mad Nile school. And he had this quote that says, like Magic is a zero-sum fun game. And, I just take all the fun for myself and, suck it out of the opponent. And this is kind of like a zero-sum fun game because the opponent won't get to do anything if this game works. And if you think that, there's 100 fun in the Magic game, I want to take all the 100 instead of doing like 52 and 50 to me, then this is a perfect list.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go on to the next. We have 3 lists left.
And number 73. Here we are.
Okay, so this was one of the most fun Swedish decks I've played on Brewers so far. So in an earlier episode, I played Dominic's Mono Blue Juxtapose, and he had a rough version of a 5-color list with birds, and I kind of what I think has cleaned it up and made it better. Certainly, I like playing Dance of Many and Juxtapose because you could copy, you can copy a Shazam at a pinch just to have a blocker and buy some time. You could certainly copy a Trike and have counters, but you can copy, make a token of a creature, and instead, in your upkeep of paying the blue, you juxtapose, and then you don't pay the blue in your upkeep, and you can destroy your opponent's creature because you still control the enchantment, which I really like that with juxtapose. But in this list, you have tap mana vaults and birds, which are hoping to give and take back a good creature and a good artifact. You have 1 Tetravis and the Trikes. You can, in your upkeep, remove the counters, and then that would be the creature that you would give if you have it out, just a 1/1 artifact creature, or you can spend the Trike and then just give that. So I really do like this list. This is great. You have a Fireball to try to clean up if you have to do some damage at the end. You have your blue power. You have some counter magics. You have a Transmute, which is great to spend a Trike and Transmute and just get a fresh one. So I really love this list. It's one of the most fun to play. Birds are great to help you ramp, and then they have a creature to give to your opponent. And tapping a Mana Vault and give that to your opponent is great too. What do you guys have to say about this list?
Really fun to play. I mean, I think we've played some games where you had Juxtapose in a different build, but like super fun to play, setting it up. And I love playing birds and Mana Vaults and, ramping into cool stuff. I also like that it's another deck that doesn't play factories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely.
I have a lot of lists that don't play factories, it seems. That's when you get spicy.
I mean, like, having like a playset of birds and playset of Mana Vaults in a Juxtapose deck, I mean, that looks perfect. You could just basically just like trade a tapped Mana Vault and a bird against an opponent's like Ox and Savannah Lions, and you could win the game. You could cast an early Juxtapose here because of like a bird and a Mana Vault, and just counter the turn 1 or turn 2 play to just win out. I think it's a really...
And giving your opponent a tap Mana Vault is not... Yeah. Your opponent is either going to take a damage per turn, which is great, And untapping 4 mana for it is almost like a time walk. You don't always have that much more mana than 4, so it's really going to screw up a turn. So it could net be really good. And you'll notice that there are no artifacts that you do have one City in a Bottle, which is a 2 casting cost, which if you give your opponent, it doesn't make a difference. Your Chaos Orb you can spend, and all your other artifacts are your creatures, which you can get down to 1/1s. So the idea is you're going to be giving tap mana vaults a lot when you cast this. Anything else on this list? It's a lot of fun. Really recommend anybody who has the cards to sleeve this up and to give it a whirl.
So
I suppose it was reasonably affordable, I think. As Legends.
Yeah, they're not that expensive. I mean, to be fair, there are only some cards in Old School Magic which are, in my opinion, not worth to afford first, or which are unaffordable at the moment.
Let's go to 70.
Yeah, we move on.
Let's go to 74. I think it's 74, right?
Yeah, 74.
74. Yep. Second to last list. Okay, so this is blue-red, but a different type of blue-red. I wanted to play Volcanic Eruption. This was the point of this deck. So it's burn. You have your lightning bolts. You do have a fireball. You have some good creatures. You have the Serendibs. You also have Azure Drakes. None of these creatures can be bolted. You have some Psionic Blast. You do have Granite Gargoyle, which is a really cool creature too. But you're playing a playset of Blood Moons, and in an earlier list, we saw the mono red list where the playset of Blood Moons was, of course, you want to shut off your opponent's non-basic lands if you can, but you also have this added benefit of Mountain Walk. Here, you want to make sure that your opponent has mountains because you'd like to cast Volcanic Eruption, which is a burn spell which is never played. So, like, let's say your opponent has 2 Serra Angels. You may be able to kill 4 of your opponent's mountains and deal 4 damage to every creature. I think that's, if I remember, maybe somebody can read what Volcanic Eruption does exactly and what the casting cost is. But
the classic blue card. It's triple blue and X, and it deals X damage to each creature and each player and destroys X mountains. So you need to have X mountains as targets. Triple blue and X to do Earthquake plus Hurricane in a sense and destroy X lands.
So you could destroy potentially 4 of your opponent's lands, 2 of your opponent's Serras just for 1 card, which would be really funny. That would be living the dream. So it's a burn list, but I'm trying to Blood Moon you and then use this Volcanic Eruption, which is a card from the Alpha set, which never sees any play in Swedish. So that was the point of this episode. The sideboard, since I'm playing very, very heavy blue, basically everything is producing blue here, right? Almost everything. I wanted to go transformational to Stasis, which I can easily do in this list, and bring in the Vices, the Stasis, and the other. All these cards are good for Stasis. You could just take a look at them. But I like transformational boards. They don't always mean transformational, meaning creatures. So I like this kind of list, and you could take out all your creatures, and you could play Stasis and let your opponent keep in their swords, and that would be a virtual card advantage if they guess wrong. What do you guys think of this list?
To be fair, this list makes me super happy because normally when the only format where I see Volcanic Eruption is Alpha 40 with that rules from the Northern Paladins, because they say you don't need to destroy mountains, you can deal X damage, and you can also destroy mountains if they are there. If not, you can just deal X damage, which is kind of a weird ruling on the card.
Okay, occasionally I wish that the Northern Paladins would read the Alpha rulebook, but that could be a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Luckily we're playing
for me,
here.
this is also highly discussable, as well as Copper Tablet is dealing 1 damage to each player in every upkeep. So when it's my upkeep, you and I get a damage. When it's your upkeep, you and I get a damage. This is also
and the fun
highly
thing is
discussable.
Okay, so we could have another episode on that because I think
let's just stick to this list because
I have a bunch of opinions regarding this list. I think that this list is a energy flux list. So I think that we could probably cut maybe the Cyblast, maybe the Boomerangs for 2 energy fluxes. Because this list would work really well with energy flux, I think.
That's interesting. So it's funny. Table the sideboard for a minute, right? The transformational board. I was thinking, okay, I hate playing with, and I have a few extra minutes, so it's fine. I hate Boomerang. It's just never great for me. And I'm thinking about like, what is Boomerang really here for in this list? And in my mind, it's probably to like get rid of an Abyss or something like that slipped through, or it was only one counter anyway. But like, then I was like, oh, okay. Is there another way to deal with Abyss that might also be useful? And I was like, well, it's not a ton of instance. Maybe like you played like two in the Eye of Chaos, right, or something like that. I think that's in Chat World. And now I'm looking at the two side blasts, and I'm like, well, that makes Cinder Blast pretty hard to cast. But now if you cut the two side blasts and put in the two Energy Flux, and then cut the two Boomerangs and put in the two in the Eye of Chaos, just hypothetically, now you have like you're messing with their mana and stuff, and but then I realized that the Boomerangs are probably there because you have two more Boomerangs and then a transformational stuff in the board. You know,
it's exactly why they're there.
Yeah, I'd like Red Blast. Yeah, I like Red Blast, also in that Stasis thing, as I mentioned earlier. But, like, it's super cool. And Azorius Drake is just, it's always super fun to, it's a flavorful card. I like that. And Earthquake, I feel like I miss Earthquake because all your creatures fly. I know, I don't know if you need it or not. It's just a consideration.
And like, I would, regarding Azure Drake also, you have, like, 19, 20 blue mana sources. I think you could play Ghost Ship.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, that's a good. I mean, they're the same. The only downside is it's 2 blue instead of 1 blue and 3, right? But otherwise, it's the same 4 mana. So that's a very good.
And you have like if you have 4 mana in this deck, it's extremely unlikely that 2 of those 4 aren't 2 blue.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a good comment. But okay, so this list was really trying to get Volcanic Eruption. I did get it for not a huge one, but I was able to win 1 game because of the card. I love these cards from the alpha set that are never used, and it was always fun going back to a blue-red burn list. If nothing else, we'll go to the last episode 75's list.
Okay, before I open the last list, this was my meltdown, my complete meltdown. I mean, I had frustrating matchups. We had all of it, like both of us. But we never tilted.
It's okay.
Till that point, the bridge was crossed. It
wasn't even that bad. Mitch, it wasn't. You weren't even that bad.
My problem is probably that I was unable to make any changes to the list. So here we are, list number 75. Charles, it's all yours. Go on.
Okay, first off, what is this player's name? This was the one of the 2 lists that finished tied for 3rd in the 94 World Championship. Misha played the other T3 list, and we reviewed that in part 1, episode 75.
I was playing
I forgot
Dominic
what this
Simmons list.
What's his list? Do you remember?
No, I hardly
Cyril,
remember Dominic Simmons.
I'm not going to say it properly, but Cyril de Foucault. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but this is his zoo list. There are 2 zoo lists. The first thing you'll notice is there are 66 cards. So these historic matches are really interesting to see what was played, what was not played. Of course, we cannot make changes to it, even though we're playing a Swedish stream. We're not making any changes to the list. The World Championship, as we said last episode, included up through Legends, so it did not include the Dark. So you really shouldn't see basic lands. There was no reason not to have them. So there are 3 strip mines in this list, but we weren't going to change it because we don't want to put any fingerprints on it. So a 66 card list. It's interesting to see. Are there draw 7s in this? No. No, there's 1. There's no wheel. So we don't have Wheel of Fortune. Bird Ape was better back in 1994 when this was played because tapped creatures didn't deal damage. So a Mishra's Factory was going to be either a 2/2 blocker or a 0/3 blocker. So a Mishra's Factory on the other side could block, but not block and kill a Curd Ape. So they were better. Interesting to see how many Fireballs and Disintegrates are there. I don't think we would play this many in a list today. But a lot of good cards that we would play today. We wouldn't play 66 cards, but this does have library. It has at least one of the draw 7s. This was a really fun match to play, and I'm really glad that we got that in. What do you guys think of this tie for 3rd list in the 94 World Championship?
So I missed the introduction. I'm sorry that I'm running away occasionally. It's
Yeah, this was
complicated stuff.
the one of the two lists that finished tied for third in the '94
This
World
is
Championship.
this is Cyril Defoucard's list, if I'm not mistaken, from France.
Yeah, you said his name much better than I just did. But 66 cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think this. So the 94 World Championship was a 512 player tournament, so you have to sign up for it, and they had it like divisible by 2 because it was a single elimination tournament. So there were over 500 players, and this guy didn't lose a single game until the semifinals. So that's something that I think we should have with us when we look at this list. And for being 94, this is really good.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of things that we could change with our current knowledge, and there are some spicy things that we think are cool with our current knowledge, like having the Bartley Rune X is in the sideboard is kind of fun. But in general, like, could some cards you could. This is at an era where the play draw rule hadn't been invented yet, so what's its face? Both Black Vice and Ivory Tower was restricted at this point and were really good cards. So you could argue for him to play one of those. Like in general, it's almost like it's a 50-50 split with mana and creature. So I think this is a worthy top 4 competitor for that World Championship. And we do stuff better today. Yes, we can build a better deck right now. I mean, it's a fine deck.
To be fair, I want to invent time traveling just to attend one of these tournaments. I don't want to buy the cards cheap. That's not a point. It's just to witness that would be amazing. You know what I mean? Like having Magic at its purest, how it is. I mean, you need to imagine there's this 500 player tournament. Yeah, you attend there with a 66 card deck. You not lose a single round in Swiss. To just lose in semifinals against probably the deck which won afterwards, and with 66 cards, and probably this was infinite fun back then. Like this looks amazing.
The French were like kind of cool, so they came there and just like played anti against the Americans. I won, so like because an American won, Zach Dolan, the guy who had this huge Chaos Orb but his dog, and he plays against Lestray in the finals.
Zoo, yeah.
And Burton Lestray had like a really good deck.
Yeah.
And Zach Dolan, I would argue, had every time a reasonable deck. It was like a bunch of like one of Clone, one of Serenial, one of Siren's Call, one of Stace. Like it was like a control deck, but like, by today's standards, it would be like the spiciest of spice if anyone tried to do that.
He had 4 Sarah Angels, but he did have like a Siren's Call and a one of
it's like
Time Elemental and some weird stuff.
Charles and
was like
we replayed also the final, and we both agreed on that the Lestray Zoo is the way better list. Like we both don't know how Zach managed to win that.
The fact Zach won 3 out of 5 means he probably drew Library every game, or Ancestral, or both of them. Or just had Lotus, Mox, Sarah Angel. I mean, he got so lucky because if you played that match 100 times, he would win 25 out of 100.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think about this list?
He had about sorry.
Go ahead, finish your thought. Yeah.
So like he actually did draw a good enough sack during that match. He drew Library and the Ivory Tower and stuff. So Lestray got asked the judges for deck check, so his deck wasn't stacked and stuff. It was a very weird time to play Magic. But in general, I would say that the Europeans, or like the French at least, like Cyril here, had better tech than the Americans in general at that point. And this deck is an example of that, because this deck, while not good, and I think while 4 of us, even though we're not like Martin Lindstrom or anything, we're not like the best players in this format, we could all probably with our skill go back to the World's 94 and be likely to win.
Yeah.
and but with that said, like during that time, this is a very solid list, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very solid list. I don't have all the back knowledge of what people played in 1994, other than the few anecdotal references that you all have shared with me today, and without me going specifically to look. But these cards, they on their face, they all look respectable, right? I mean, we don't see Upton Troll played very often outside of a Disco Troll deck or as like a fifth troll or something like that, maybe. But in and of itself, it's not a bad card inherently. And as opposed to the Siren's Call that you mentioned, we're all kind of scratching our head like, okay, Siren's Call, maybe there's some kind of trick there or something. But, these cards are all very solid. And I'm not surprised that he finished third.
Yeah. Anything else to say about the list? Because otherwise, I guess...
I'll say
I don't know whether this guy is. Like I've had interactions, or at least secondhand interaction with Zach Dolan, and I've had I have some idea, about Lestray at this point, but I have no idea where this guy is. Does he play Magic? I don't know.
we'll have to see if somebody knows them. Yeah, these lists are really special. So we did the finals in episode 50. We did the semifinal match. We took the two players who lost for episode 75. For episode 100, I'll give a preview. Magnus generously gave Meech and I the list for the very first old school tournament ever that was played, the two final lists. So that's going to be episode 100. And he gave me something else, which I won't say because I'm not going to spoil everything. What will be our 125 episode. So always on the 50, 75, 100, 120, 150. We're always going to try to do something super special and unique if we can. Okay, so that's the end of the 25 list. I'd love to ask you two. So you've seen Meech's 25 list. We spoke about mine. So who do you think put on some spicier decks, or which list do you like better? We'll be okay whoever of the two of us loses. What do you think of the list I played, 51 to 75, and Meech played?
Guys, I can't see you anymore. We lost connection at that point. I guess we need to close the stream now. No, just kidding.
Oh, no. We have to.
Good, and I'm in charge of techniques here, right? Yeah. Oh, fuck, the mic was still on.
But Charlie, you obviously this is Charlie played a few of my lists, like Adventure Island and stuff, and he played pretty damn earlier and stuff. So yeah, I have some bias towards Charlie's lists. What I would say, however, is that looking at this and being a part of seeing all this at once, in a sense, not watching the occasional Skygull YouTube video, but getting all the lists, 50 lists in 2 sessions. I feel like getting a Place of the Living Flame, 2 more Tabernacles, and a Place of Eurekas. And those, I need those cards to build more cool decks, or split over you two guys. So in a sense, my deck building uses has been triggered off both.
Cool. That's nice to hear.
What do you think, Jeff?
What, Charlie?
What do you think?
I mean, well, first thing I have to say is your deck photos are awesome, and all your cards are black bordered. So that means Meech's is better because he's got white bordered cards that don't exist in the real world, like white bordered creatures. That's pretty special. Now, this was super fun. It's amazing that you're both able to do this for so many decks. And in terms of spice, I mean, I have to say, Charlie played a deck with Evil Eye in it as a 1-0. I mean, that's pretty cool. I know both spicy about it. You both had some really spicy decks, and you both had some, call it a few spiky decks, right? Like you had the Paul De Silva, variant that we started off with today, Charlie. And I know Mitja had a couple of, there's like 1 or 2 spiky decks that were really good. this is full of flavor. This is a blast. And all I kept thinking about during this entire time, especially today, is that, the card pool at that time, it's unbelievable how many different decks you could build that will still interact in a way where it's not just one deck completely demolishing the other deck over and over and over and over again. And then number two, it's amazing how many interesting interactions there are with those cards. And I feel like cards today, if we can even call them Magic cards still, every card has like 5 abilities in it. It does stuff, right? So naturally, the types of interactions that can happen, there are so many more, some based on multiplication. But the more, when you really dig down into these decks, you can see like all these interactions that at first glance you didn't notice. And then you're like, wow, this actually works with that. And I didn't even think about putting this in there. And I think that's like a lot of, your exposition of the 2 minutes of going through each deck on like why this is there, or this was the theme of the deck, is like really interesting to listen to. And then, having the input from a few other folks of on other things that could happen. It's just really interesting. I don't know. I said my piece, really. It's really, really cool.
Well, that's great. And I'm certainly not saying that all these are well constructed. Since we never repeat a deck, we only have so much time. All of this is free. All of this is because we want to produce content that we hope others will be entertained by. We want to document all of these lists. We really love the Swedish format. So even thinking in 20, 30, 40 years from now, we'd like a collection of a series where you can see all these cards played. A lot of people don't own them. So it's really great that at least, even if you don't own them, you can at least see how they will work in a deck, good, bad, or in between. So these were great. And every episode, it's a little bit harder for Micha because we never repeat a deck. So we're recording, I think we just recorded episode 82 right now. But when we're up to 382, it will get harder because we can't use any of the decks we've previously played.
To be fair, my hope is that people will start forgetting and I can just play again like the first two.
No. I'll remind everybody. I'll say in the deck tech, no, we can't play this episode. This was recorded back at episode 73. Okay, so unless anybody has anything else to say, thank you both, Magnus, Jeff. Thank you both. This is almost a 5-hour commitment to do the part 1 and part 2. We really appreciate it. You're both definitely invited back if you would do the next review, if you have time, and that would be great. Otherwise, we still thank you so much for doing this. It was a blast for us. Hopefully everybody thought this was really a good review because we're trying to show every Swedish deck at least once. And these review specials consolidate everything in a brief period of time, even though it's 2.5 hours, a little bit more. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Jeff and Magnus, so much. Micha, I'll see you back in the Brewers Tavern soon. And until our next review special, where we'll review episodes 76 to 100. Bye for now, everyone.
Sure.
Bye-bye. See you next time.
Bye-bye.